Chapter 1700. That's not right. The old storyteller shook his head. Everyone, you're all smart people. No eggs can remain intact when the nest is overturned. If the barbarian race, dragons and Kuan race are destroyed, the human race will be next. Some of the emperors remained silent. In reality, those who could cultivate to this level could naturally see the situation clearly. However, they had gone through countless hardships to reach this level. When they reached the peak, they had a chance to transcend the tribulation and become immortals, heading to the legendary immortal world. However, if they were to join this war against the primordial 5 races, they would have no choice. Su Zimo did not say anything. He believed that most cultivators would understand this logic, let alone the emperors. The reason why the emperors hesitated and were unwilling to step forward was mainly because they were worried that they would die in this war. To be fair, if they ascended and left, what did the humans of Tianhuang mainland have to do with them? Once they ascended to the upper realm, even their sex would not be anything to the emperors, let alone the humans of Tianhuang mainland. For the emperors, transcending the tribulation and becoming immortal was their only pursuit. Therefore, cultivators with higher cultivation realms, such as patriarchs and emperors, rarely stepped into Tianhuang mainland to interfere with the fights between the major sects and factions. For example, the human emperor was the only one who still cared about Tianhuang mainland, even after ascending to the upper realm. Monk Kongyan said, "Actually, it's not just about the cold. During the convention of the 10,000 races, the dragons stepped forward to help us. If not for the deterrence of the primordial 5 races by the Emperor Qianlong, we might not have been able to coexist for the next 1,000 years. Now that the dragons are in trouble, how can we ignore it?" The Sword Emperor suddenly asked, "Why would the primordial 5 races suddenly attack when the Emperor Qianlong is alive? Are both sides really going to fight to the death?" "Because the Emperor Qianlong is dead." Su Zimo did not hide anything and told them everything that happened in the past few days. The emperors present had solemn expressions. Sovereign Qianlong is already dead, including the Underworld Witch Sovereign and the Golden Crow Fire Sovereign. There are 3 sovereigns of the primordial 5 races who have comprehended 4 divine skills. How are we going to fight them? I think we should forget about it. Even if we stand out and help the primordial 3 races, we won't be able to defend against the combined might of the primordial 5 races. The Sword Emperor and the others were originally slightly tempted, but they gave up when they heard this news. Su Zimo chuckled. "Do you guys think that you can escape this calamity by hiding in the ancient battlefield?" There was another important reason why many sovereigns did not want to attack. The sovereigns of the primordial races could not barge in the ancient battlefield. At the very least, they could preserve their lives. "What do you mean?" the Sword Emperor asked with a frown. Su Zimo said calmly, "Emperor Qianlong, Emperor Kuan, and Emperor Man were all killed in their own ancestral lands. They were not killed by outsiders, but by their own people. Are you sure you won't die in the primordial battlefield?" The hearts of all the sovereigns skipped a beat when they heard that. They glanced around and gradually distanced themselves from one another with wary expressions. In other words, Su Zimo was clearly implying that there might be someone among them who would go crazy and kill the human sovereigns as well. If it was an open fight between sovereigns, it would be difficult to determine life and death. However, if they were caught off guard and attacked suddenly, it would be hard to say. "Wu Huang, what do you mean by that?" Monk Jiwen asked. "Are you saying that there are sovereigns among us who have betrayed the human race? That's unlikely, right?" Su Zimo did not answer and continued. "Apart from that, there's something else that I'm sure you guys haven't noticed. The power of the restriction left behind by the human emperor in this ancient battlefield is gradually weakening." "What?" The expressions of the human sovereigns changed. The reason why they could cultivate here without any qualms was because this was the human emperor's restriction, and the sovereigns of the primordial races could not enter. This was their final refuge. If the human emperor's restriction continued to weaken, they would be exposed to the sovereigns of the primordial races as well. The human emperor's restriction has never dissipated through history. Why would it suddenly weaken in this generation? The ultimate essence emperor revealed a suspicious expression and frowned. Araki Takashi, don't spout nonsense. Su Zimo sneered. 1,000 years ago, senior human emperor descended upon Tianhuang mainland and broke the barrier of this world, causing this world to be incomplete and the laws to be chaotic. Senior human emperor once said that even he did not know the consequences of that. However, one of the consequences right now is that the power of the restriction in this ancient battlefield is weakening continuously. As long as you investigate, you'll naturally know whether this is true or not. Before Su Zimo could finish, the human sovereigns had already released their spirit consciousnesses to investigate the restrictions of this world. The expressions of some of the sovereigns turned extremely terrible. Right now there were only two paths before them. They could either follow Araki Takashi and join forces with the dragons, Kuan race and barbarian race, to fight against the primordial 5 races. Otherwise, they could wait for the dragons, Kuan race and barbarian race to be destroyed, and the sovereigns of the primordial 5 races would come knocking on their doors to kill them. The heavenly tribulation was of utmost importance, and nobody dared to attempt it without being fully prepared. The heavenly tribulation was not an ordinary power. Once one could not withstand it, their soul would dissipate on the spot, and they would not even have a chance to escape with their essence spirit. Monk Empyrean Cloud said, I agreed to join forces with the dragons. As he said that, he stood out. I agree as well. Monk Jiwen followed closely behind. The sovereigns of Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace, and more than 10 other sovereigns stood out as well. The Sword Emperor and the others exchanged glances and made their decisions as well. Right now there were only two paths. They could either take the initiative to fight for a chance of survival or wait for death. It was a good choice. The Sword Emperor said in a deep voice, we can join forces with the dragons. However, Wu Huang, I'm afraid you won't be able to convince everyone if you want to command us, right? The Eastgate Spear Emperor sneered as well. Araki Takashi, you've just been conferred the title of Emperor and have comprehended a peerless divine power that's endless without any lethality. None of the sovereigns present are more qualified than you to be the commander of the sovereigns. Wu Huang has obtained the inheritance of the human emperor of all ages and is the human emperor of this generation. I'll support Wu Huang with all my might. The storyteller old man said in a deep voice. The storyteller old man had comprehended for peerless divine powers. However, at that moment, he chose to submit to Su Zimo. That was a huge support. Hee. The Mirror Emperor Shiman laughed strangely. You're the successor of the human emperor's palace, and naturally have to listen to him. However, we have nothing to do with Araki Takashi. Someone who has just been conferred the title of emperor wants to command all the sovereigns. What a joke. Wu Huang may have just been conferred the title of emperor, but when he was conferred the title of emperor, he killed Emperor Yu and Emperor Concealed, who can stand shoulder to shoulder with such combat strength. The sovereign of Snowdrift Valley couldn't help but speak up for Su Zimo. That might not be the case. The Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect said sinisterly, I would like to spar with Wu Huang and see what Wu Huang is capable of. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1701. Fu Emperor. I remember that you've only comprehended one supreme divine power. The Emperor of Overlord Palace laughed out loud. Your combat strength can't even compare to mine. How can you compete with Wu Huang? The Fu Emperor's gaze was cold as he said faintly, War Emperor, don't be so arrogant. Be careful not to bite your tongue. Humph. The War Emperor of Overlord Palace sneered. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you. There's no need for that. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly said, apart from the Fu Emperor, anyone else who wants to fight with me can step forward. Araki Takashi will take them all. Arrogant. The Eastern Spear Emperor looked disdainful as he walked out slowly. I'll do it. Count me in. The Shiman Mirror Emperor stood out as well. I'd like to try out Wu Huang's methods as well. I hope that Wu Huang won't disappoint me. The Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect smiled and cupped his fists at Su Zimo. Initially, the Sword Emperor and the others wanted to step forward as well. However, when they saw that, the other emperors frowned and retreated. As emperors, they did not want to bully others with numbers because of their status. In the blink of an eye, 4 emperors stepped forward. Those 4 emperors were the ones who cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, according to Monk Daming. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and landed on Monk Jiwen. Jiwen, I'm still missing you. You can join me as well. Monk Jiwen was the 5th emperor to cultivate the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. However, he hid it well, and even took the initiative to stand on Su Zimo's side earlier. If not for Monk Daming's reminder, Su Zimo would definitely not have thought of Monk Jiwen. Monk Jiwen was slightly stunned. There's no need for me, right? In my heart, Wu Huang is indeed qualified to command all the emperors. I'll also listen to Wu Huang's orders. Even if you don't come out, I'll look for you later. Su Zimo said expressionlessly. Monk Jiwen pretended to be at a loss and smiled. Wu Huang, I'll be waiting for you at any time. Monk Clearcloud was a little confused. He glanced at Monk Jiwen beside him, not knowing why Su Zimo would suddenly target Monk Jiwen. Only the old storyteller seemed to be deep in thought. He believed that Su Zimo's actions were not without reason. Wu Huang, do you need my help? The storyteller sent a voice transmission. No need, Su Zimo said telepathically. It just so happens that I want to use them to refine my skills. The old storyteller's eyes lit up. He could tell that Su Zimo had an exceptional divine ability, already comprehending its profound mysteries. However, he lacked an opportunity, a bit of inspiration. Su Zimo wanted to make another breakthrough with the help of these emperors. The emperors retreated. In the blink of an eye, there were only 5 people left on the divine powers ranking. Su Zimo stood in the middle while the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect's Fu Emperor, Shiman Mirror Emperor and Eastern Spear Emperor, stood in 4 different directions, surrounding Su Zimo. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect slapped his storage bag and withdrew a sword that shone with resplendent starlight. The sword trembled and a boundless sea of stars seemed to be condensed around it, mysterious and vast. The sword emitted the might of the Emperor Dao. That was a true Emperor weapon. Suddenly the old storyteller frowned. In his memories, the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect had comprehended 2 supreme divine abilities and was considered an expert among the emperors of the human race. However, there was no way he could refine such a powerful emperor weapon with just 2 supreme divine abilities. The sword flew out of his hand and tore through the air. Instantly, the boundless sea of stars around the sword returned to the sword. The sword transformed into a streak of starlight and arrived before Su Zimo instantly. At the same time, Malevolent Earth Sect's Fu Emperor attacked as well. The Fu Emperor drew a dark golden saber that emitted a dark and cold aura. His figure flashed and was erratic. However, in the blink of an eye, he arrived beside Su Zimo. The speed of his movement technique was not inferior to the Emperor weapon, sword of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect. Die! The Eastern Spear Monarch leaped into the air and raised both his hands above his head. In his palms was a heavy pitch-black long spear. Then he smashed it down viciously towards Su Zimo's head. Almost at the same time, the Shiman Mirror Emperor attacked. He held an ancient bronze mirror in his palms and shone it towards Su Zimo. Swash! A white light shrouded Su Zimo and emitted a mysterious and sinister power. The power of the ancient bronze mirror transformed into white chains on Su Zimo's body and coiled around Su Zimo tightly. The 4 sovereigns attacked at the same time. As sovereigns, they had gone through countless battles of life and death. Even if they had never worked together before, their first time working together was flawless. They attacked from afar and close range. They even used secret techniques to restrict Su Zimo's movements and suppressed him instantly. The expressions of the sovereigns changed. What are they trying to do? The War Emperor of Overlord Palace frowned and clenched his fists. How is this a spar? Are they trying to kill Wu Huang? The combat power of the Fu Emperor and the other 3 is already so strong. The Sword Emperor narrowed his eyes and said, the 4 of them seem to be much stronger than before. It doesn't look like they have only comprehended 1 or 2 supreme superpowers. The sovereigns were secretly shocked. If they were in Su Zimo's position, none of them would be able to escape unscathed. Perhaps only the mystic sovereigns who had comprehended 4 supreme superpowers would be able to escape. Great. At this moment, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. He did not dodge. Instead, he shouted and activated his chi and blood. The aura in his body instantly rose to the peak. Rumble. The sound of waves surged. Immediately after, a jade-green creation Qinglian soared into the sky behind him. It swayed gently and emitted green halos that lit up the sky. Crack. Crack. The shackles on Su Zimo's body had just been formed when the creation Qinglian broke them. The jade-green Qinglian soared into the sky and collided with the Eastern Spear Emperor's spear that was descending from the sky. There was a loud explosion. Boom! Su Zimo's bloodline phenomenon collided with the pitch-black spear. Heaven and earth trembled, and the weather changed. The jade-green creation Qinglian shook slightly. Its green halos were scattered, and it was almost smashed into pieces by the Eastern Spear Emperor. The storyteller's gaze froze and he murmured, 3 supreme superpowers. The power that the Eastern Spear Emperor unleashed just now was definitely not at the level of comprehending only one supreme superpower. The other sovereigns also realized this. After not seeing each other for so many years, the Eastern Spear Emperor had already comprehended 3 supreme superpowers. On the battlefield, the starlight of the Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor descended. Reaching out, Su Zimo grabbed at the speck of starlight with his bare hands. You must have a death wish. The Xiong Emperor's eyes flashed with cruelty. He believed that the starlight was enough to penetrate Araki Takashi's palm. Nobody knew that he had already comprehended 4 supreme superpowers. Poof! True enough. A bloodlight flashed and the starlight penetrated Su Zimo's palm, piercing towards Su Zimo's glabella. Chapter 1702. Diyu had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, and Qinglian's true body could take him head-on. But now, the Xiong Emperor had comprehended 4 supreme divine powers, and could already pierce through the flesh of Qinglian's true body. Su Zimo had only comprehended 1 supreme divine power. Qinglian's true body still had a lot of room for improvement. One had to know that every time one comprehended a peerless divine ability, a powerful divine ability would enter one's body, cleanse one's flesh and blood, and refine one's primordial spirit. Although both parties were emperors, there was a huge difference in their realms. Clang. However, just as the beam of starlight was about to hit Su Zimo, a green light shone from his glabella, and a jade-green lotus platform flew out, colliding heavily against the beam of starlight. Sparks flew everywhere. The Dharma treasure sword of the Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor reverted to its original form, and was sent flying. Although the Dharma treasure sword could pierce through Qinglian's true body, its strength had already been reduced by more than half, and it could not defend against the impact of the creation lotus platform. At the same time, a chilling killing intent surged from the side. The malevolent Earth Sex Fu Emperor had already arrived before Su Zimo. Twisting his wrist, he used an extremely strange saber technique and stabbed towards Su Zimo from the bottom up. Su Zimo did not have time to turn around, and his entire arm was flung behind him. Like the trunk of an elephant, it rested on the Fu Emperor's saber, coiling and vibrating. Buzz! The saber vibrated. The Fu Emperor was alarmed as he felt a strong tearing force. He could barely hold on to his Dharma treasure saber, and it flew out of his hands. He retracted his saber hurriedly and retreated. Su Zimo retracted his palm at the same time. The strength of the malevolent Earth Sex Fu Emperor had exceeded Su Zimo's expectations as well. This time round, the secret skill of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness could not snatch the saber from the malevolent Earth Sex Fu Emperor's hands. Araki Takashi, let's see how many of my attacks you can defend against. The Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor stood far away and turned his Dharma treasure sword around. Dazzling starlight gathered and stabbed towards Su Zimo once more. You want to kill me with these scrap metals? Aren't you too naive? Su Zimo's expression was calm as he smiled indifferently. The Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor's eyes narrowed. Just, he had noticed that the wound on Su Zimo's palm had healed. The 4 emperors were secretly shocked. The self-healing ability of the Green Lotus true body was too strong. Although Su Zimo did not circulate the supreme divine powers of Endless Cycle, The wounds caused by those Dharma treasures could not harm the foundation of his green lotus true body. Piak. /on Su Zimo's Dipper use Heaven's Emperor's body. Attack. Although his palm was cut again, the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a few breaths of time, it was completely healed. Kill. The four emperors attacked at the same time. Apart from their destiny Dharma treasures, they summoned a few other Dharma treasures and shuttled around Su Zimo, releasing violent attacks. Su Zimo merely relied on the creation lotus platform and Qinglian's true body to fight against the four emperors. It did not take long for Su Zimo to be covered in injuries on the battlefield. However, with the immense life force and regeneration of Qinglian's true body, Su Zimo fought even more valiantly against the attacks of the four emperors. The Xiong Emperor and Fu Emperor have both comprehended four supreme divine powers. What sort of opportunity did they obtain? I'm not sure. The Spear Emperor and Mirror Emperor have also comprehended three supreme divine powers each, and are comparable to the ancient emperors. One had to know that in the ancient times, the Thunder Emperor, the Saber Emperor, and the Buddha Emperor had only comprehended three supreme divine abilities. Strange, doesn't Wu Huang have the human emperor's seal? Why isn't he using it? Monk Empyrean Cloud was confused. Indeed, Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal. Furthermore, he was certain that if he used the human emperor's seal, the Starlight Sword and Ancient Bronze Mirror would be suppressed mercilessly. The reason why he did not use the human emperor's seal was because he wanted to train Qinglian's true body and comprehend the supreme divine power that he had been cultivating all this while. 3 heads and 6 arms. The inheritance of 3 heads and 6 arms was on the human emperor's seal. That was secondary. The most important thing was that the eternal human emperor released that supreme divine power with the help of Qinglian's true body back at the convention of the 10,000 races. To begin with, Qinglian's true body had an inherited memory of 3 heads and 6 arms. At that time, Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit was in his consciousness and experienced the entire process of that supreme divine power being released in battle. There was also something else. When Su Zimo was at the Dharma characteristic realm, he had once cultivated 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics and had already formed the embryonic form of this supreme divine power. Among the few supreme divine powers, the one he had the highest chance of comprehending was 3 heads and 6 arms. Everyone, Wu Huang's physique is a creation of heaven and earth, and it's difficult for ordinary dharmic treasures to injure him severely. We've got to release our divine powers. The Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor sent a voice transmission. That's right. The Eastern Spear Emperor agreed. Meteor fall. Almost at the same time, the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect and the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect channeled their essence spirits and drew a series of mysterious trajectories with their hands, pointing to the firmaments and hollering. Countless stars appeared in the firmaments in a boundless manner, and these stars were like meteors as they smashed towards the ground, covering the sky and covering the sun. They were so densely packed that they covered the sky. Meteor fall, a supreme divine power. The power of divine powers was used to condense a vast number of stars that descended from the skies. It was enough to destroy the world. A single meteor fall was enough to shock the world, let alone the release of 2 supreme divine powers at the same time. The entire primordial battlefield was shaking. The expressions of the emperors changed starkly as they retreated one after another, afraid that they would be struck by the falling stars. Su Zimo gazed at the firmaments with a torch-like gaze. There was no way to avoid that supreme divine power, and he could only take it head-on. Kill! Su Zimo reared his head and howled into the skies, closing his fingers to conjure a sword art. Suddenly, 108,000 streams of heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth from his body and shone brightly. They defied the heavens and pierced towards the falling stars. Bang! 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 The white sword light collided with the falling meteor, exploding with an earth-shattering sound. Countless stars exploded in midair. However, those were supreme divine powers after all, and there were 2 of them. However, the heaven-slaying sword chi was already unstoppable. Before long, the billions of starlight drowned Su Zimo. Rumble! Boom. It was accompanied by a deafening sound. Boom. Su Zimo's figure vanished completely. The battlefield was in a mess and gigantic craters were created by the stars. Gravel flew everywhere and dust billowed. Could Wu Huang have been smashed to death by the stars? It's hard to say. With two supreme divine powers descending at the same time, even mystic sovereigns are probably doomed. The surrounding emperors stared at the battlefield nervously. Boom! All of a sudden, in the center of the battlefield, countless gravel exploded and mud flew everywhere. A massive life force burst forth, and a green glow extended. Su Zimo tore through the air with the creation lotus platform above his head. A powerful divine power revolved around him, and a rich life force surged within his body. Although he looked a little wretched, Su Zimo's injuries were healing rapidly. The creation green lotus grew and multiplied endlessly. Book Abode Reading Website. Chapter 1703. He's not dead yet. The Eastern Spear Emperor's eyes shone with a vicious glint. In a flash, he arrived beneath Su Zimo and waved the spear in his hands. An incomparably tyrannical divine power burst forth. In a trance, the pitch-black long spear seemed to have disappeared. In its place was a pitch-black divine dragon. Ascending dragon break, the Eastern Spear Emperor hollered and channeled his essence spirit, releasing a peerless divine power that belonged to the Tao of the spear. The divine dragon tore through the air and spiraled upwards with an unparalleled aura, smashing towards Su Zimo fiercely. Bang! This time round, it collided with Qinglian's true body solidly. Su Zimo was sent flying far away from midair. His body burst into a blood mist, and a chilling sound could be heard from his bones. This time round, countless bones were shattered. Qinglian's true body was almost torn apart. Not only that, the divine dragon was still circling around Su Zimo, biting the flesh of Qinglian's true body continuously. Blood stained the firmaments. Ever since Su Zimo was conferred the title of emperor, Qinglian's true body had never suffered such injuries. Right then, the Shiman Mirror Emperor, Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor and Malevolent Earth Sex Fu Emperor attacked once more and released another peerless divine power. Death Slice. The three emperors channeled their essence spirits and circled their hands in front of them. The power of divine powers spun continuously between the palms of the three emperors, forming a gigantic wheel of death. Its edges were jagged and pitch-black as ink as it sped towards Su Zimo. This was a peerless divine power that was formed by fusing the Great Ripping Technique, Great Slicing Technique, and many other great divine powers. Its killing power was extremely terrifying. The three wheels descended with a shuddering aura of death and arrived instantly. Before Su Zimo could break free from the divine dragon's pursuit, the three pitch-black wheels had already descended. Su Zimo dragged his heavily injured body and activated his primordial spirit to unleash various escape techniques. He barely managed to avoid one pitch-black wheel, but he was unable to avoid the other two. He raised his arms to block. Poochie! Bloodlight surged. The pitch-black wheel landed on Su Zimo's arms. It seemed to be stationary, but it was actually spinning at high speed. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo's arms were cut off. Blood gushed out and splattered everywhere. It was an extremely tragic sight. Su Zimo's face was pale. He clenched his teeth and didn't say a word. He activated his Yuan Shin crazily and used the endless multiplication skill to grow his arms back. However, there was still a strong aura of death lingering around the wound of the severed arm. The aura of death and decay clashed with the aura of life and death, and both of them devoured each other. The three sovereigns of the Heavenly Dipper sect had either comprehended 4 supreme divine abilities, or 3 supreme divine abilities. They were extremely powerful. The wounds caused by Death Slice could not heal even with the endless multiplication skill. Of course, if Su Zimo were to recuperate quietly, given the recovery capabilities of Qinglian's true body, it wouldn't take long for those injuries to heal. But now, in that intense battlefield, the 4 sovereigns were filled with killing intent, and would not give Su Zimo a chance to catch his breath. The 4 sovereigns had already realized that they had to attack continuously against Qinglian's true body, that had comprehended endless multiplication. They had to ensure that Qinglian's true body could not recover, and eventually exhaust her to death. Wu Huang. When they saw that, many sovereigns of Snowdrift Valley, and the other sovereigns were deeply worried. In their opinion, if this continued, Araki Takashi would definitely die. Are we just going to watch? The War Emperor of Overlord Palace gripped his fists tightly and widened his eyes in rage. He could not bear to watch any longer. Monk Jiwen said, "This battle is Wu Huang's own choice. If you help, Wu Huang won't be able to convince the masses even if he wins. Furthermore, even if you help, it won't affect anything." The War Emperor of Overlord Palace had only comprehended two supreme divine abilities. A single split from the pitch-black roulette on the battlefield was enough to severely injure the War Emperor. The old storyteller frowned with a grim expression. Earlier on, he nearly could not hold it in any longer, and wanted to join the battlefield to save Suzimo. As the guardian of the human emperor's palace, there was no way he could watch as Suzimo was surrounded and killed. However, he recalled what Suzimo had said to him before the battle. The old storyteller looked into Suzimo's eyes. Although he was severely injured and his life was hanging by a thread, his eyes were unusually calm and shone brightly. The old storyteller took a deep breath and suppressed it, continuing to watch the battle, prepared to attack at any moment. On the battlefield, the supreme divine abilities of the four emperors caused immense damage to Qinglian's true body. After losing her arms, Qinglian's true body could not regrow them even after 10 breaths. Not only that, the wounds on her arms were already rotting and emitting a foul stench. Suzimo relied on his many divine abilities and escape techniques to dodge back and forth against the encirclement of the four emperors. However, in reality, Suzimo had already entered a mysterious state at that moment. His mind was completely immersed in the comprehension of a supreme divine ability. His dodging was more like an instinctive reaction. Bang! Ethereal wings behind Suzimo were torn apart by the pitch-black roulette and dissipated. Suzimo's movement technique slowed down instantly. Die! The eyes of the Heavenly Dipper Sex Emperor lit up as he pointed forward. The pitch-black roulette sped past Suzimo's neck. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Suzimo's head was sliced off by the pitch-black roulette and fell into the dust from midair. With her head severed, Qinglian's true body was equivalent to being crippled. However, the battered Qinglian's true body was still hovering in midair. Suzimo's essence spirit sat on the creation lotus platform and had already left beforehand, hovering above the neck of Qinglian's true body. Sigh, Wu Huang is finished. That's right. Even Qinglian can't make up for the difference of 2 or 3 supreme divine abilities. The difference is too great. Qinglian's true body is crippled, and she's only left with an essence spirit. There's nothing to fear anymore. Many emperors shook their heads with regretful expressions. Let's see how you can survive without the protection of your physical body. The Eastern Spear Emperor sneered and waved the spear in his hands, stabbing viciously towards the black-haired essence spirit on the creation lotus platform. All of a sudden, the black-haired essence spirit on the creation lotus platform opened her eyes. This essence spirit's eyes actually burst forth with 2 beams of divine light. Immediately after, an extremely powerful divine power burst forth from the battered Qinglian's true body and surged through her bloodline, shackles and wounds furiously. Clang! Just as the Eastern Spear Emperor's pitch-black spear was about to pierce the black-haired essence spirit, a head suddenly grew from the neck of Qinglian's true body and protected the black-haired essence spirit. The pitch-black spear did not penetrate the head when it struck it. Instead, it was repelled with the sound of metal clashing. Immediately after, Qinglian's true body's arms grew out anew. In the blink of an eye, Qinglian's true body was restored to its original state. End of chapter. Chapter 1704. In the blink of an eye, Suzimo grew 3 heads and 6 arms in the center of the battlefield, and his aura rose continuously. 3 heads and 6 arms was a peerless divine power that made the eternal human emperor famous in the ancient era. It was with that peerless divine power that the eternal human emperor was able to suppress many top emperors of the primordial races single-handedly and dominate the ancient era. The power of divine power surged into his body and tempered Suzimo's body, bloodline and even essence spirit continuously. Qinglian's true body became even stronger. Su Zimo's body shone with a green glow as though a god had descended. Before the might of 3 heads and 6 arms was fully revealed, Qinglian's true body had already undergone a shocking transformation. Prior to this, be it the starlight sword of the heavenly dipper sex Xiong Emperor, or the pitch-black spear of the Eastern Spear Emperor, they could pierce through Qinglian's true body. But now, after the tempering of 2 peerless divine powers, the destiny dermic treasures of the 4 emperors could no longer injure Qinglian's true body. Standing on the spot, Su Zimo waved his 6 arms, be it fists, palms, fingers, or claws. He defended against all the incoming Dharma treasures with his bare hands. Cling! Clang! Although the dermic treasures of the 4 emperors were repelled, Qinglian's true body was unharmed. The expressions of the 4 emperors of heavenly dipper sect changed starkly. They could clearly sense that the power within Su Zimo's body had not stopped, and was still rising rapidly. By the time the peerless divine power finished tempering Qinglian's true body, even they did not know what level Su Zimo's strength would reach. The only thing they were certain of was that they were definitely not a match for Su Zimo. Break it! Gripping the creation lotus platform, Su Zimo smashed it viciously towards the pitch-black wheel that was revolving around him. Bang! 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 There were 3 consecutive deafening sounds, and the 3 supreme divine powers were shattered into nothingness by the power of blood chi released by Su Zimo, with the creation lotus platform in his hands. Su Zimo's chi and blood surged within his body. Behind him, a jade-green Qinglian appeared, its gigantic lotus leaves blotting out the sun. It was as if the entire world was under the control of the green lotus of creation. Fight! Su Zimo shouted, and unleashed the 3 heads and 6 arms. Technique to fight against the 4 sovereigns. One of the arms raised the lotus throne of good fortune, and smashed it down towards Mirror Emperor Shimen. Mirror Emperor Shimen hurriedly raised his bronze mirror, and blocked the lotus platform of good fortune. Clang! A loud sound rang out. The ancient bronze mirror was unharmed, but the arms of the Shimen Mirror Emperor were completely broken. An enormous and terrifying power surged into his body through the ancient bronze mirror. A blood mist burst forth from his body. In an instant, countless flesh and blood exploded, and Mirror Emperor Shimen was covered in blood. If not for the protection of the ancient bronze mirror, Su Zimo's attack would have been enough to turn him into dust. He would not even be able to revive from a drop of blood, even if the primordial races comprehended 2 supreme divine powers. Their combat strength was equivalent to the human race comprehending 4 supreme divine powers. As for the Grade 8 creation Qinglian, it was even stronger and more terrifying than the primordial races. After all, there was only one creation Qinglian. Even Su Zimo himself did not know how strong the true body of the Qinglian could unleash after comprehending 2 supreme divine powers. Today's battle was the perfect opportunity for him to verify it. After severely injuring Mirror Emperor Shimen with a single strike, Su Zimo did not hesitate, and his figure flashed forward once more, not giving Mirror Emperor Shimen a chance to catch his breath. Su Zimo's other arm swung, and the blood chi in his fist expanded, forming a gigantic seal that suppressed Mirror Emperor Shimen. Nether Blood Shield, an extremely evil bloodline aura burst forth from Mirror Emperor Shimen's body. As he waved his hands, a gigantic shield made of blood water was formed. Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. The storyteller's gaze narrowed as he murmured softly. The emperors present also realized that what Mirror Emperor Shimen released at that moment was a divine power from the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Boom! Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as the gigantic seal formed by his fist continued to suppress. It collided with the nether blood shield and exploded with an earth-shattering bang. Immediately after, the nether blood shield shattered. Even a supreme divine power could not defend against the 3-headed, 6-armed Su Zimo. Poof! Immediately after, Mirror Emperor Shimen's body was shattered into pieces by the impact of the tremendous power. An essence spirit escaped and sped into the distance while condensing flesh and blood. Kill! Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his mouth and released a secret skill, Thunderclap Kill, that descended. The power of a single Thunderclap Kill was shocking. The 3 heads and 3 mouths released the sound domain secret technique at the same time. The 3 heads resonated with each other, and the power of Thunderclap Kill increased by more than 3 times. The flesh and blood around Mirror Emperor Shimon's essence spirit had only condensed halfway before it dissipated on the spot. The essence spirit stood quietly in midair. Cracks had already appeared on it, and its life aura had decreased sharply. It could no longer survive. Mirror Emperor Shimon was killed by Thunderclap Kill. Just as Su Zimo attacked to kill Mirror Emperor Shimon, the other 3 emperors also attacked at the same time and unleashed a frenzied attack towards Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo had 3 heads and 6 arms. Even if he used 2 arms to suppress Mirror Emperor Shimon, he still had 4 arms free to block the other 3 emperors. It was more than enough. The change brought by the 3 heads and 6 arms was not just an increase in strength. It was a metamorphosis on the level of battle. Under the state of 3 heads and 6 arms, Su Zimo could see all directions and would not be ambushed at all. The Eastern Spear Emperor danced with the spear in his hands and charged forward. Su Zimo raised his arm and clenched it into a fist, sending the spear in the other party's hands flying with a single punch. The palms of the Eastern Spear Emperor were dripping with blood. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect and the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect were also repelled by Su Zimo's punches. Right then, Thunderclap Kill descended and Mirror Emperor Shimon died. As for the Eastern Spear Emperor, he had only comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. Therefore, Thunderclap Kill had a huge impact on him as well. Streaks of blood even appeared on his body, and he was almost shattered. A hint of confusion appeared in his eyes as well. His mind went blank momentarily. Although the flaw was fleeting, it was enough for Su Zimo. In a flash, Su Zimo arrived before the Eastern Spear Emperor and extended his finger, tapping gently on the latter's forehead. Poof! A bloody hole appeared and fresh blood gushed out. Suddenly, the Eastern Spear Emperor's eyes were bloodshot. However, they dimmed in the blink of an eye. In his consciousness, his essence spirit was already shattered by Su Zimo's finger. The Eastern Spear Emperor's head tilted, and he fell from midair. The emperors were dumbfounded. Nobody expected that Araki Takashi, who was initially doomed, would reverse the situation and comprehend 3 heads and 6 arms. He released an incomparably tyrannical strength and killed 2 emperors consecutively. On the battlefield, Su Zimo's aura was torrential, and his gaze was like a torch. He glared at the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect and the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect not far away and strode over. The 2 of you hand over your lives as well. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1705. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect and the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect exchanged glances. After a moment of hesitation, their eyes shone with a scarlet glint as they came to a decision. The 2 of them decided to fight it out. If they could kill Araki Takashi here, his bloodline would provide an unimaginable boost to their combat strength. Blood sacrifice. The 2 emperors channeled their secret skills and spoke at the same time with a sinister voice. Even though many of the martial emperors had already hidden far away to spectate the battle, the bloodlines in the martial emperors' bodies became restless when they heard the words, as if they were about to leave their flesh. Some of the emperors even released their peerless divine abilities, but they could not stop the bloodlines in their bodies from stirring. The emperors were shocked. Furthermore, they were standing far away. It was hard to imagine what would happen to Wu Huang, who was in the center of the battlefield and was struck by the secret skill head-on. However, to the shock of the emperors, Su Zimo merely frowned slightly and did not even pause in his movements. He was completely unaffected. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already arrived before the 2 emperors. Even the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect and the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth Sect were shocked, let alone the surrounding emperors. How was that possible? Once the secret skill of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra was released, even peerless divine abilities would find it difficult to defend against it. Even if Su Zimo was Qinglian's true body and had a strong blood qi, it was impossible for him to not be affected at all. What the Fu Emperor of Heavenly Dipper Sect did not know was that Diyu had released this secret skill against Su Zimo and Monk Daming back then. However, Su Zimo and Monk Daming were not affected at that time. On the contrary, Du was severely injured by Monk Daming's blood sacrifice. Tao of the evil fiend. Su Zimo harumphed coldly and said, "Destroy." Su Zimo raised his arm and held the creation lotus platform in his palm. It shone with a resplendent light and crushed down on the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth sect. His other arm struck towards the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect. He wanted to suppress the two emperors the moment he attacked. The Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth sect could not dodge in time, and hurriedly formed the nether blood shield in front of him. Boom! Qingmian creation smashed into the nether blood shield. A lotus flowers blossomed and green light spread, piercing the nether blood shield full of holes. Su Zimo's eyes suddenly turned pitch black and emitted a dark and cold aura. A pitch-black beam of light shot out and landed on the face of the Fu Emperor of Malevolent Earth sect. Serene fluorescent eyes. This eye technique had yet to be cultivated to the level of a divine ability. His blood. The Fu Emperor's body's is blood. S is that his soul. The Fu Emperor's consciousness paused momentarily. Emperor, S. Although the Fu Emperor's face could defend against the power of the nether fluorescent eye, it could not defend against the creation lotus, and was shattered into pieces. The Fu Emperor's soul could not escape, and was killed on the spot. The Fu Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect was dead. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect at the side was affected by the power of the nether fluorescent eye as well. Right now Su Zimo had 3 heads and 6 arms. Even the pitch-black light of the nether fluorescent eye could release 6 beams. However, many stars appeared in the consciousness of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect. They defended against the power of the nether fluorescent eye and maintained his consciousness. Before Su Zimo's killing move arrived, the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect's soul had already escaped from his body. Bang! Su Zimo's 4 punches landed one after another. Almost at the same time, the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect was smashed into pieces and blood splattered everywhere. The true body of the Grade 8 creation Qinglian, who had comprehended 2 supreme divine powers, was enough to suppress a human emperor, who had comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. Rebirth from a drop of blood. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect's soul escaped, and hurriedly channeled his divine powers to reconstruct his body. However, Su Zimo followed him like a shadow and charged forward once more with his 6 arms. Swash! 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 At the same time, Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit. While he was still sprinting, the dermic treasures and weapons that fell around him had already turned into streams of light and landed in his palms. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo's 6 palms each held a dermic treasure and suppressed the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect one after another. Bang! 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 A deafening roar resounded. The emperors were secretly speechless, and their hearts skipped a beat. There was no technique to speak of. This was absolute strength. No matter how strong the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect was, he could not defend against it. After 2 consecutive rounds of suppression, the starlight sword in the hands of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect was shattered by Su Zimo. Su Zimo's body spun continuously, and his 6 arms danced with dermic treasures, continuing to suppress and smash down without stopping at all. The Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect did not even manage to catch his breath before he was smashed to death by Su Zimo. If 3 heads and 6 arms were used against an emperor, who could defend against such a violent and unreasonable attack? Even the emperors who were watching the battle felt suffocated. 3 heads and 6 arms, as expected of the divine power that made the human emperor famous. How terrifying! A single Wu Huang is already so strong. Think about it. This is equivalent to 3 Wu Huangs attacking at the same time with telepathy. It would be strange if the Xiong Emperor didn't die. He already has such combat strength after comprehending 2 supreme divine powers. If he can comprehend 3 or 4, wouldn't he be comparable to the human emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect? I reckon that Wu Huang's future accomplishments might even surpass the human emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect. After this battle, the emperors no longer had any doubts about Su Zimo's ability to lead everyone. After Su Zimo killed the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect, The killing intent in his eyes did not dissipate. His 6 gazes shifted and landed on an emperor at the same time. Jiwen, come out and die, Su Zimo said coldly. The rulers present all had 9 orifices in their hearts. When they saw Su Zimo's expression, they knew that there was something fishy going on. Many emperors retreated one after another and distanced themselves from Jiwen. On the other hand, Monk Empyrean Cloud frowned slightly and did not want to leave without Monk Jiwen. He cupped his fists and asked, "May I know why Wu Huang wants to kill Jiwen?" "That's because even if he doesn't kill me, I'll kill him." Suddenly, Monk Jiwen's voice turned incomparably sinister and sounded in the ears of Monk Empyrean Cloud. "Watch out!" Immediately after, the old storyteller's warning sounded. Monk Empyrean Cloud was alarmed. Without hesitation, he abandoned his physical body decisively and escaped into the distance with his essence spirit. Exclamation point. Monk Jiwen's palm crushed Monk Empyrean Cloud's head. He was so close to killing Monk Empyrean Cloud's essence spirit on the spot. "You won't be able to escape." Monk Jiwen's expression turned incomparably menacing, and his eyes were bloodshot. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and extended his scarlet tongue that extended dozens of feet, coiling towards Monk Empyrean Cloud's essence spirit instantly. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1706. The Scarlet Tongue was extremely fast. In that short period of time, Monk Empyrean did not even have the time to reconstruct his body, and was instantly in a dangerous situation. Swash! All of a sudden, a scroll descended from the skies and unfurled rapidly. There were some blood-colored words written on the scroll, but they were much dimmer. The scroll surrounded Monk Empyrean, and the side with the words written on it was facing the outside. Monk Jiwen's tongue struck the scroll directly. However, it did not penetrate the seemingly thin piece of paper, and instead caused a puff of green smoke. Ching! The scarlet tongue retracted as though it was burned by some sort of power. Monk Jiwen grunted dully, and frowned slightly as well. The human emperor's decree. Among the emperors, someone recognized the origin of the scroll. It was Su Zimo who saved Monk Empyrean with the human emperor's decree in time. A few hundred years ago, the human emperor's decree killed an emperor. After all these years, the power of the kill symbol left behind by the human emperor's decree had mostly dissipated, and could no longer pose a threat to emperors. Even so, the human emperor's decree still contained the remnant aura and power of the ancient human emperor. It would not be penetrated that easily. Condense. Under the protection of the human emperor's decree, Monk Empyrean reconstructed his body before long, and appeared once more. He looked at Monk Jiwen with doubt, anger and confusion in his eyes. "Jiwen, why are you doing this?" Monk Empyrean Cloud could not believe that Monk Jiwen would do such a thing to him. Just now, if Su Zimo had not saved him, he would have died. "There's no reason." Monk Jiwen's expression was cold and his eyes shone with a sinister sanguine glint. "You've cultivated that fiend technique as well." As though he sensed something, Monk Empyrean Cloud asked with a frown. Monk Jiwen smiled, and ignored Monk Empyrean Cloud. The sanguine glint in his eyes shifted and landed on Su Zimo. "Wu Huang, let me test your capabilities." Comet Strike Moon. Conjuring a sword art, Monk Jiwen closed his fingers and hollered, slashing in Su Zimo's direction. Endless sword intent gathered on Monk Jiwen's sword fingers, dark and profound with a chilling killing intent. A peerless divine ability of the Sword Dao. Currently, there were 2 types of Supreme Sword Dao mystical abilities in Tianhuang mainland. One was Comet attacking the moon, and the other was Sun-piercing rainbow. The moment the moon-striking comet exploded, all the emperors were shocked. It was not because of this supreme divine ability, but because of the power that Monk Jiwen had unleashed. The power of this supreme mystique was a level higher than the Heavenly Dipper Sex Xiong Emperor and Malevolent Earth Sex Fu Emperor just now. One had to know that both the Xiong Emperor and the Fu Emperor had comprehended 4 ultimate superpowers. The power that Monk Jiwen gathered was a level stronger than that of the 2 rulers. There was only one possibility for this. 5 supreme theurgies. Nobody expected that Monk Jiwen, who was hidden among all the emperors, would have already cultivated 5 supreme theurgies. and was even stronger than the mystic emperor. In the ancient times, when there were many emperors, there was only one who had cultivated 5 supreme divine abilities, and that was the demon emperor Li Hen. On the battlefield, a shuddering sword Dao divine ability descended. A black beam tore through the air at an extremely fast speed, and arrived in the blink of an eye. Even with Su Zimo's speed, he could not dodge it. At that moment, the peerless divine ability of the sword Dao even blocked his spirit perception. It was way too fast. Su Zimo released all his blood qi and leaped into the air. Exclamation point. The black beam pierced the chest of Qinglian's true body. The sharp and murderous sword qi surged into the body of Qinglian's true body, slicing through every single inch of flesh and destroying her life force furiously. However, Qinglian's true body that had comprehended 2 supreme theurgies was no longer the same as before. Piercing Qinglian's true body that was at peak rank 8 was already the limit of a comet attacking the moon. It was impossible for it to destroy Qinglian's true body completely. Blood qi surged within Qinglian's true body. It circulated endlessly and her life force surged endlessly like a tsunami, howling and surging within her body. The moment the sharp sword intent devoured an inch of her bloodline's life force, an even richer life force surged over. The 2 extreme powers devoured one another with Qinglian's true body as the battlefield. Although the bloody hole in the chest of Qinglian's true body did not heal immediately, it was no longer bleeding and was healing bit by bit. Qinglian's creation is truly perfect. When Monk Jiwen saw that, he praised instead. If this Qinglian's true body comprehends 3, 4, or even 5 or 6 supreme theurgies, who in the world will be able to defend against her? If this Qinglian's true body cultivates to rank 9, even taboos will have to bow their heads. Monk Jiwen had a deranged expression, and his eyes shone with greed. That gaze was a little strange. Under normal circumstances, the stronger Su Zimo and Qinglian's true body were, the greater the threat to Monk Jiwen. However, on the contrary, Monk Jiwen was even more excited than Su Zimo. In a daze, an illusion rose in Su Zimo's heart. At that moment, the person he was facing did not seem to be Monk Jiwen. Take a move from me too. Su Zimo ignored the deranged Monk Jiwen and strode forward. His 6 arms danced and each of them wielded a dermic treasure, be it a saber, a sword or a lotus platform. In midair, afterimages were formed as they crushed towards Monk Jiwen. The 2 supreme theurgies that he had comprehended were not offensive divine powers. Although the 3 heads and 6 arms were strong, it increased one's strength, and would not conjure any divine powers or secret skills to suppress the opponent. Even so, the power released by the rank 8 creation Qinglian was sufficiently strong, and could even take on some divine powers and dermic weapons head-on. Once Su Zimo closed in and suppressed him with his 6 arms, Monk Jiwen would not even have the chance to conjure his divine powers. At that time, there would only be a single outcome for Monk Jiwen. He would be smashed to death. That was the outcome of the Xiong Emperor of Heavenly Dipper sect. Coupled with eternal vitality and the 3 heads and 6 arms, there was almost no one who could outlast Su Zimo. The moment Su Zimo arrived, Monk Jiwen suddenly retreated, and the sanguine glint in his eyes disappeared. He turned solemn and dignified, exuding a benevolent aura. Monk Jiwen pointed at Su Zimo and chanted in Sanskrit, "The 4 elements are void." When they heard those words, the emperors and the old storyteller were moved. The 4 elements are void. Among the many divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries, it was an extremely strong supreme divine power with shocking lethality. The ancient Buddha emperor comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, and was able to suppress some emperors of the primordial races. Apart from the credit of Qinglian's creation, it was also because the ancient Buddha emperor had comprehended that supreme divine power. The so-called 4 elements were earth, water, wind and fire. In the profoundness of the Buddhist monasteries, they were the foundation of all living beings. The 4 elements are void, and everything will turn into nothingness. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1707. In some ancient books, there were records of the scene of the 4 elements void. In the ancient war, the Buddha emperor released the 4 elements void. Right in front of everyone, the emperors of the primordial races turned into nothingness and disappeared from this world completely. It was as though they were wiped away by an invisible force. Dharmic treasures, flesh and essence spirit were all turned into nothingness. Ever since the ancient era, there had not been any emperors of the Buddhist monasteries who managed to cultivate this supreme divine power of the Buddhist monasteries. To think that monk Ji Wen would be able to cultivate the four elements void in this generation. What was even more frightening was that the ancient Buddha emperor had only comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. However, monk Ji Wen had comprehended 5 supreme divine powers. When he released the 4 elements void, the power he released was even more terrifying than the ancient Buddha emperor in the past. Waving his 6 arms, Su Zimo looked as though he was about to reach monk Ji Wen when he suddenly froze in midair. It was as though he was frozen on the spot by an invisible force. Immediately after, right in front of countless gazes, the dharmic treasures in Su Zimo's hands dissipated one after another into dust. Thereafter, even the dust disappeared and turned into nothingness. Other than the lotus throne of good fortune, which was still intact, the other dharma treasures had all disappeared, like dust that had landed on a mirror and been wiped away by someone. Before long, Su Zimo's 6 arms began to shatter as well. His legs, head and body turned into dust that filled the air and vanished before long. Pust! The emperors gasped and felt chills run down their spines. Wu Huang's Qinglian's true body was extremely strong and could even take divine powers and dharmic treasures head-on. Even so, it was still wiped away by the 4 elements void. Right then, an emperor exclaimed softly and suddenly said, "Something's not right. Wu Huang isn't dead yet. The creation lotus platform is still around." The emperors focused their gazes. Although the creation lotus platform that floated in midair was dim, it was still intact. In the center of the lotus platform sat a black-haired essence spirit. It was Su Zimo. Monk Ji Wen scoffed coldly as he channeled the power of his essence spirit and continued to reinforce the power of complete nothingness. He said coldly, "Earth, water, wind, and fire have all turned into nothingness. Let's see how long you can last." Suddenly, in the middle of the lotus platform, Su Zimo's primordial spirit opened its eyes and said slowly, "Even if this world is destroyed, I will not perish. Even if the earth, water, wind, and fire are reduced to nothingness, the creation Qinglian will still exist forever." Before his sentence was finished, the creation lotus platform began to spin and rays of light shot out from the 72 lotus holes. Beneath the lotus platform, a jade green lotus stem grew with lotus leaves that covered the skies. In the blink of an eye, a Qinglian of good fortune was reborn. It rushed into the sky and swayed gently, creating ripples. Its entire body emitted a green halo. The storyteller heaved a long sigh of relief and nodded secretly. He's still alive. The Qinglian of good fortune is indeed an utmost treasure of the universe. Seems like it's definitely true that the Qinglian of good fortune came from the immortal world. It's impossible for such a powerful treasure to be born in the lower realm. I heard that in the future of heaven and earth, there will be a Qinglian of good fortune that was born in the chaos. The 4 elements are complete nothingness and will merely return to the chaos. How can they hurt the Qinglian of good fortune? The emperors discussed with glints in their eyes and were extremely excited. To them, being able to witness a battle as such was extremely beneficial for their cultivation. "Ji Wen, you've lost." Su Zimo revealed himself once more, and had already arrived before monk Ji Wen with a torrential aura. With a holler, he lifted the creation lotus platform and smashed it towards monk Ji Wen. Nether blood shield. Monk Ji Wen did not dare to take it head-on with his physical body, and conjured his 3rd supreme divine power right away. A gigantic blood shield condensed in front of monk Ji Wen. It shone brightly and emitted an extremely evil aura. Boom! When the creation lotus platform smashed against the blood shield, it did not manage to break the shield immediately. Instead, the creation lotus platform sank into a scarlet blood light. The blood contained a strong power of filth that could destroy dharmic treasures. If it was any other dharmic treasure, it would have turned into scrap metal after being soaked in the blood. The creation lotus platform shone with a resplendent light, and was not tainted by the surrounding blood. It was in a stalemate. Wu Huang. Jiwen smiled gently. You've merely comprehended two supreme divine powers, and your strength is only on par with mine. You're way too naive if you think that you can kill me. Humph. Su Zimo sneered as well. If that's all you've got, I'll send you on your way right now. Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and took out a pitch-black seal. It had distinct edges and exuded an extremely terrifying aura. The moment the pitch-black seal was released, the voids of the ancient battlefield trembled. The human emperor's seal, condensed with the fortune of Tianhuang mainland and the mountains and rivers. This was a true weapon of Tianhuang mainland that could suppress everything. Prior to this, even against the encirclement of 4 emperors, Su Zimo did not release the human emperor's seal because he wanted to comprehend 3 heads and 6 arms. Now that he had comprehended that supreme divine power, he no longer held back. Shatter! Su Zimo hollered and raised the human emperor's seal, smashing it down viciously against the blood shield before him. Monk Jiwen's pupils constricted violently. He could sense the aura of death against the pressure of the human emperor's seal. I can't block it. A thought flashed through Monk Jiwen's mind. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The nether blood shield was shattered by the human emperor's seal, and blood splattered everywhere. Although the blood was evil, it could not taint the Creation Lotus platform, and the human emperor's seal at all. Holding the Creation Lotus platform in his left hand, and the human emperor's seal in his right, Su Zimo smashed it down towards Monk Jiwen. The blood shield shattered and Monk Jiwen summoned his destiny dermic weapon hurriedly, a fiend vanquishing Vajra scepter. Waving the fiend vanquishing Vajra scepter, Monk Jiwen defended against the human emperor's seal. Break! Su Zimo hollered. Snap! A series of cracks appeared on the fiend vanquishing Vajra scepter. It was shattered by the human emperor's seal. Actually, no matter how strong the human emperor's seal was, it could not shatter the fiend vanquishing Vajra scepter that was refined with 5 supreme divine powers. However, the fiend vanquishing Vajra scepter was a Dharma treasure of the Buddhist monasteries to begin with. However, Monk Jiwen was a fiend to begin with and could not release the true strength of the Dharma treasure. Finally, Monk Jiwen's expression changed. With the fiend vanquishing Vajra scepter shattered, he seized the opportunity to retreat. Biting the tip of his tongue gently, he spat out a stream of essence blood that condensed into a gigantic blood face in midair that lunged towards Su Zimo. That was his 4th supreme divine power. However, the moment that supreme divine power was condensed, Monk Jiwen shuddered as though something had happened. The blood face was showing signs of collapsing. There was no way Su Zimo would let go of such an opportunity. Striding forward, he raised the human emperor's seal and smashed the blood face into pieces. Monk Jiwen's gaze flickered with a bewildered expression as he hollered, Blood escape. Chapter 1708. When Monk Jiwen saw that the situation was amiss, he wanted to make use of blood escape to escape. At the level of divine powers, blood escape had to burn half of one's bloodline, and the speed of one's burst was extremely shocking as well. A streak of blood light tore through the air. Suppress! The old storyteller pointed forward, and the human emperor's palace descended with an incomparably majestic aura, suppressing Monk Jiwen. Monk Jiwen cultivated the blood refinement fiend sutra, and must not be allowed to escape. At that moment, the old storyteller had already realized that there must be an unimaginable secret behind the reappearance of the blood refinement fiend sutra, and the fact that many emperors were trapped within it. The old storyteller wanted to find out the secret behind it, through Monk Jiwen. Swash! However, the old storyteller had underestimated the speed of blood escape. The blood light flashed and fled into the horizons before the human emperor's seal descended, vanishing from everyone's sights before long. Su Zimo stood on the spot without moving. It was not that he did not want to chase, but he knew that he would not be able to catch up even if he moved. More importantly, Su Zimo was clear about something. Monk Jiwen would definitely not survive. There was another person waiting for him up ahead. Jiwen has comprehended 5 supreme divine powers. If we let him escape, he'll definitely be a threat in the future. The old storyteller murmured with a worried expression. Don't worry, Senior. He won't be able to escape, Su Zimo said indifferently. All of a sudden, a violent energy fluctuation and blood qi surged from the distant horizons that even the Emperor's spirit consciousnesses could not detect. Immediately after, the power of bloodline dissipated rapidly, and the fluctuations over there gradually calmed down as well. That's the direction Jiwen escaped in. Could he have been killed? The emperors exchanged glances with bewildered expressions. The emperors could not sense what happened because they were too far away. However, they could vaguely guess that Monk Jiwen was already dead. Even if Jiwen's combat strength was reduced after a huge battle earlier on, he has a body and essence spirit tempered with 5 supreme divine powers after all. Who can kill him? I'm not sure. There might be some hidden experts in the ancient battlefield. The old storyteller pondered for a moment before he suddenly sent a voice transmission to Su Zimo with his spirit sense and asked, Zimo, was the person who killed Jiwen the emperor with the Taoist named Sun Moon? Su Zimo nodded. A glint flashed across the old storyteller's eyes as he asked again, Is this person the monk Daming from 40,000 years ago? That's him. Su Zimo was silent for a while, but he did not hide anything. If Lin Xuanji could guess, the storyteller, as his master, would naturally be able to guess as well. I didn't expect him to still be alive after 40,000 years. Tianji's loss to him is not unjustified. Although Heavenly Secrets was killed by Yen Beichen, he was defeated by Monk Daming twice in their fight. The last time he even lost his life. For a time, the old storyteller seemed to have sunk into his memories. He recalled many things of the past, and he sighed with emotion. Is this person a friend or a foe? The storyteller asked again. Although he had guessed Monk Daming's identity, he did not know much about this generation's Monk Daming. I don't know. Su Zimo shook his head gently. Although Monk Daming had saved him before, there was some history between the two of them. That was the reason why Monk Daming treated him differently. However, Monk Daming's return this time round was no longer the same Monk Daming from 40,000 years ago. The Monk Daming of 40,000 years ago was compassionate and magnanimous. He would definitely not kill the innocent. However, the hands of this generation's Monk Daming were stained with endless blood. In fact, in order to cultivate the blood refinement fiend technique, he set up the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple on purpose and lured many cultivators over to kill and refine him. If the Monk Daming of 40,000 years ago knew about the situation of the battle in Heaven and Earth Valley, he would definitely do his best to stop it. However, in this generation, Monk Daming took advantage of the situation and schemed against Heavenly Secrets to refine the bloodlines of many living beings in Heaven and Earth Valley to raise his cultivation. Su Zimo was not sure if Monk Daming was a friend or foe. There's no need to bother about him. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo said, Right now, the greatest danger comes from the primordial 5 races. The old storyteller nodded as well. Wu Huang, give the order. How should we fight this battle? The War Emperor of Overlord Palace asked loudly. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, If nothing goes wrong, this battle will erupt in the North region. At that time, all you have to do is defend against the emperors of the various demon regions. As for the emperors of the primordial 5 races, the emperors of the dragons, Kuan and barbarians, and I will defend against them with all our might. The emperors exchanged glances and heaved a sigh of relief. If they were to fight against the emperors of the primordial 5 races head-on, they would most likely be doomed. However, they could fight against a group of demon emperors. Thereafter, Su Zimo discussed with the old storyteller and the human emperors how the cultivators and disciples of the various sects should defend against the armies of the primordial 5 races. In the depths of a sinister cemetery in the Middle Continent, in an ancient coffin underground, it was pitch black and cold. One could not even see their fingers. All of a suddenly, 2 beams of blood light shone in the ancient coffin. They seemed to be the eyes of a person. Interesting. Most of the cards I left in the human race have been cleared by you guys. A sinister voice suddenly sounded and echoed in the ancient coffin, sending chills down one's spine. Let's see how you're going to break out of this situation. TSK, 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 I'm looking forward to it. A sinister laughter sounded, accompanied by an ear-piercing creaking sound. It was as though someone was extending their sharp nails and scratching the lid of the coffin continuously. 3 days later, Middle Continent. The Heavenly Eye race, the Bloodvine race, the Rakshasa race, the Golden Crow race, the Witch race, and the God race, the primordial 6 races were gathered. The clansmen below were divided into different camps, with the leaders of the various races leading them. There was a unique formation between the primordial 6 races. The Protoss was at the front. After the convention of the myriad races, the background of the Protoss was no longer a secret. The reason why the primordial 5 races joined forces this time round was to let the Protoss be the vanguard. After Shenhuang's death, although the Protoss had emperors, they were definitely no match for the Golden Crow, Fire Emperor, Underworld Witch Emperor and the others. They had no choice but to compromise. Furthermore, for the Protoss, the chaos of Tianhuang mainland was more beneficial than disadvantageous to them. After the Protoss were the Golden Crow, Heavenly Eye and Bloodvine races. The 3 primordial races formed a circular formation and protected the Witch race with the weakest bloodline in the middle. Many Rakshasas floated in midair. This formation could unleash the combat strength of the primordial 6 races to its limits. Outside the primordial 6 races, it was even more spectacular. There were countless demon beasts from the 8 demon regions that filled the mountains and roared into the skies, shaking the world. The emperors of the 8 demon regions had already submitted to the primordial 6 races. Under the orders of the demon emperors, the ferocious beasts and remnant beasts of the various demon regions came out one after another and formed armies of the various demon regions. They gathered in Middle Continent and surrounded the primordial 6 races. A great battle was about to break out. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1709. The emperors of the 8 demon regions had already descended on the Middle Continent. There were a total of 17 of them, and all of them stood outside the boundaries of the emperors of the primordial races with humble postures, not daring to advance. For emperors of the Protoss were here, and were on par with the emperors of the demon race. The Protoss was already removed from the primordial races. Although they were strong, their status was not much different from the 8 demon regions. The emperors of the primordial 5 races stood in the middle. The Underworld Witch Emperor and Golden Crow Fire Emperor were among them. Beside the 2 emperors, there were 3 other emperors on par with them. The Thousand Eyes Emperor of the Heavenly Eye race, the New Blood Emperor of the Bloodvine race, the Shadow Emperor of the Rakshasa race. Their statuses were strict among the primordial races. The Underworld Witch Emperor and Golden Crow Fire Emperor had comprehended 4 supreme divine powers, and were the top emperors. Those who could be on par with them were definitely on par. The Shadow Emperor, and the other 2 were emperors of the primordial 3 races, who rose in recent years, and had also comprehended 4 supreme divine powers. Behind the 5 emperors, there were more than 50 other emperors of the primordial 5 races. Over the years, the foundation of the primordial races was way too great. The scale of the battle was comparable to that of the primordial war. This was going to be an unprecedented battle that would engulf the entire Tianhuang mainland. The 5 emperors of the Golden Crow Fire Emperor stood in midair and looked at the army of billions gathered in the Middle Continent with excited expressions. If nothing went wrong, the dragons, Kuan race and barbarians would be removed from Tianhuang mainland after this battle. As for the primordial 5 races, they would regain control of Tianhuang mainland and become the overlords of this world. Reporting to Shadow Emperor. Right then, a Rakshasa patriarch arrived and knelt down, saying in a deep voice, "The barbarian race is empty. There's news that the barbarians have all moved to the Dragon Bone Valley of the North region." "Got it, you may leave." The Shadow Emperor nodded slightly and turned to the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the others, saying in a deep voice, "Everyone, let's go and march to the North region." The Underworld Shaman Emperor leaned on his pure white bone staff and stood there silently. No one knew what he was thinking. "Underworld Witch, what's on your mind?" The Golden Crow Fire Emperor suddenly asked. After a moment of silence, the Underworld Witch Emperor said, "There's something strange about such a huge change in the dragons, barbarians, and Kuan race. Are you suspecting that it's a trap?" The Golden Crow Fire Emperor laughed and said, "Don't worry, I've received accurate news that Emperor Qinlong has fallen. Now that Emperor Qinlong is dead, there is nothing to fear." The Blood Emperor also said, "That's right, the dragon race, Kuan race, and barbarian race's emperors have all suffered heavy losses. The barbarian emperor and Kuan emperor have both fallen." The Underworld Witch Emperor said, "On our way here, almost all the major human sects have been emptied. It seems that the humans are preparing to join forces with the dragons." The Golden Crow Fire Emperor laughed and said, "They are just a bunch of ants." But why would the Sea Dragon Emperor and the others betray the dragons and Kuan race? The Underworld Witch Emperor thought of something and narrowed his eyes. He was still confused. The Underworld Witch Emperor said, "Moreover, these emperors didn't come to find us. Where did they go?" Underworld Witch. The Thousand-Eyed Emperor smiled. "You're thinking too much. No matter what, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The dragons, Kuan race, and barbarians are at their weakest. If we don't start this war now, when Araki Takashi's two true bodies grow, will there be a place for the primordial 5 races?" "That's right," the Shadowless Emperor said. "Not to mention others, even the descendants of the Forbidden God Puppet will not let us go. Don't forget that the parents of that bastard died indirectly in the hands of our ancestors. This little bastard, I wonder what level he has reached." The Underworld Witch Emperor asked. "Don't worry," the Golden Crow Fire Emperor said. "He's just an emperor. He's not much of a threat to us. If he's given some more time and grows to his peak, the 5 of us will become his food. Let's go." The Underworld Witch Emperor no longer hesitated and suppressed the doubts in his heart for the time being. He said in a deep voice, "Head to the North region and destroy the dragons." There was something else that the Underworld Witch Emperor did not say. Even if there were any other changes, the witch race had prepared a killing move. Once this killing move was released, even the Heavenly Eye race and Golden Crow race beside him would be destroyed, let alone the dragons, Kuan race, and barbarians. At that time, there was a high chance that the witch race would dominate Tianhuang mainland. There was no need for the Underworld Witch Emperor and the others to command the army. The Underworld Shaman Emperor and the others only needed to pass the order to the ears of the various patriarchs, and the various patriarchs would lead the army and march towards the northern region. Hundreds of millions of demon beasts filled the mountains and plains as they howled. Smoke billowed and dust filled the air. Everywhere they passed, not a single blade of grass remained. A war that engulfed the entire Tianhuang mainland finally erupted. 10 days later, the demons at the front finally stepped into the North region. The first to charge into the North region was Wild Lion Ridge, one of the 8 demon regions. Wild Lion Ridge belonged to the North region to begin with, and was the most familiar with it. Many demons were excited to step into the North region again. Kill. Right then, sword beams tore through the air one after another. Many dermic weapons and spirit weapons descended from the skies. Countless dermic arts formed an inescapable net that enveloped the demons that charged in. Cultivators of our generation, this is the moment to slay demons. The Patriarch of Snowdrift Valley descended into Midair and pointed at the demons with a murderous aura, with a sword in hand. Behind him, the cultivators of Snowdrift Valley attacked one after another. At the same time, at the border between the North region and the Middle Continent, cultivators of Glass Palace, Sword Sect, Overlord Palace, and the various immortal Buddhist and fiend sects arrived one after another. Apart from the super sects, cultivators of the upper sects, aristocratic families, and even some small sects of Tianhuang mainland gathered here under Wu Huang's summons. The past few days were enough for the super sects to gather their cultivators for this battle. Without any probing, the patriarch of the super sects led the army of cultivators to face the demons. This was a battle that determined the survival of the human race. Roar! With the backing of the primordial 5 races, the demons were even more fearless. Demonic chi surged into the skies as they lunged towards the cultivators ahead. Looking down from the sky, the two huge forces collided fiercely at the border between the northern region and the central region. It was as though two gigantic torrents had collided and exploded with a deafening bang. The moment the two torrents collided, blood splattered everywhere. Instantly, the world was dyed red by a thick layer of blood, and the air was filled with the stench of blood in an extremely tragic manner. Boom! A golden beam of light descended from the skies and smashed heavily into the demon beasts, piercing the ground and causing the surrounding ground to crack. Immediately after, a tall figure descended and thumped his chest, roaring into the skies. Genius memorized this address in a second. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 1710. It was a tall and burly ape with thick fur all over its body. Its eyes were scarlet and white gas spewed out of its nose and mouth with torrential demonic chi. Monkey had arrived at the peak of the Mahayana realm. It was way too difficult to become an emperor in 1,000 years. Su Zimo was a dermic decree of a human emperor, and gathered the fortune of Tianhuang mainland. Furthermore, he was Qinglian's true body, and seized the creations of heaven and earth to become an emperor. Monkey had only awakened some memories, and was not at the level of an emperor yet. Of course, the power released by a peak Mahayana realm monkey, after releasing Bloodline Berserk, could even fight against some ordinary emperors. Wielding Imminent, Monkey descended from the skies and smashed into the demon horde of Wild Lion Rich. He thumped his chest and roared. Countless demon beasts were scared out of their wits and did not dare to approach. Roar! A massive ling who burrowed out of the forest. Its massive figure was even taller than many ancient trees. The most frightening thing was that the ling whose body shone with the power of thunder in a bedazzling manner. Screech! The cry of a crane sounded from the skies. Ching Ching spread her wings and burned with flames, looking down on the world like a spirit of flames. On a mountain not far away, a majestic lion reared its head and roared into the skies. It shone with a blazing golden light like a blazing sun. On the other side, a boy and fox stood under the protection of many Misty Peak cultivators. Although they were far away, if the demon beasts on the other side accidentally exchanged glances with the fox, their eyes would turn blank, and their minds would be controlled, causing them to switch sides. As for the boy, he merely extended his arm and transformed it into a branch of a peach blossom tree. Waving it in the demon beast horde, he could send a demon beast flying each time. However, the boy did not kill them the entire time. The two of them were Momo and Little Fox. More and more demon beasts charged towards the north region. Apart from the demon beasts of Wild Lion Ridge, the remnant beasts of the other demon regions were surging over as well. The moment Monkey and the others appeared, old demons of the 8 demon regions charged forward and faced them. Demon Monkey. An old white ape demon from the Myriad Demon Valley stared at the monkey and said sternly, "As a member of the ape and monkey clan, you actually disobeyed the orders of the ape emperor. You're courting death." What bullsh ** T-ape emperor? He was so scared by the primordial races that he knelt down and submitted. The monkey sneered, "You dare to call yourself an emperor with just this bit of guts? One day, I'll replace you. How dare you?" The white ape's eyes widened and he said coldly, "Emperors are not to be humiliated. Kill." The white ape demon leaped into the air, holding a pitch-black staff in both hands. He smashed it down viciously at the top of the monkey's head. Get lost. Monkey wasn't afraid at all, and his blood chi surged. Wielding Imminent, it shone with a golden light as it stomped on the ground and charged forward. Boom! The two rods collided and a loud bang erupted. A blinding light burst forth from the point of collision and spread rapidly. Countless ancient trees were snapped, and the demons retreated one after another. Pooh! White Ape spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was ugly as he staggered. He was already injured from a single head-on clash. Monkey's figure fell to the ground rapidly. However, right after, he leaped up at an even faster speed. Without giving the white ape a chance to catch his breath, he swung Imminent and smashed it down with all his might. In Monkey's hands, Imminent shone with a golden light that seemed to extend dozens of feet. It expanded continuously and smashed down like a divine pillar, that connected the heavens. White Ape gripped his staff with both hands and took a deep breath of air, blocking upwards. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The White Ape demon was smashed into the ground by Imminent and turned into a bloody paste. His essence spirit could not even escape and was smashed to death by Monkey's staff. Monkey's strength increased several times after activating his berserk bloodline. Although the White Ape demon had been famous for a long time and was at the peak of the Mahayana realm, he could not withstand the power of Monkey's 2 rods and was destroyed in both body and spirit. Splash! An East CWIRM charged over with a murderous aura. Opening its mouth, it spewed out endless seawater that surged as though it wanted to pour down all the water of the East Sea. Ling Hu roared and lightning flashed on his body as he charged towards the WIRM. Flesh and blood splattered on the battlefield. In less than an hour after a battle of this level broke out, the border between the North region and the Middle continent was already littered with corpses and rivers of blood. There were many demon beasts in the 8 demon regions. However, there were many human cultivators gathered under the command of the sect masters of the various major sects. And there was also a massive number of them. The human cultivators did not back down in this battle. As the old storyteller had said, the only thing the human race lacked in this generation was a peerless expert like the ancient human emperor. That was the reason why the various major sects and factions, such as the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects, were in a state of disunity, plotting against one another with their own agendas. But now, that peerless expert had already appeared. 1,000 years ago, the ancient human emperor passed down the throne to Araki Takeshi. Over the years, Wu Dao's name spread widely across Tianhuang mainland, causing Araki Takeshi's reputation to grow. A few days ago, all the emperors of the human race submitted to Wu Huang. That was why Araki Takeshi's reputation reached its peak. All the cultivators in the world responded to Wu Huang's command. Although the primordial 5 races had gathered the ferocious beasts of the 8 demon regions, they were blocked by the various human factions at the border between the North region and the Middle continent. The long border was filled with corpses. The emperors of the demon race and the primordial races were not in a hurry to attack. The battle had just begun. Right now, the patriarchs were the ones with the highest cultivation realms fighting on the battlefield. In the eyes of the emperors, even the patriarchs were ants. The emperors of the primordial races looked down at the corpses that were piled up like mountains below, with indifferent expressions. To think that these ants of the human race would have some tricks up their sleeves. The Golden Crow Fire Emperor smiled with a relaxed expression. The Thousand-Eyed Emperor said indifferently, "They're just mantises trying to stop a chariot." The Underworld Witch Emperor said, "Seems like it's just the 8 demon regions that can't break through the defense line of the human ants. We can let the Protoss take action now." The primordial 5 races wanted the myriad races to fight to the death in this battle. That way, even if the primordial 5 races suffered considerable losses, and the myriad races were severely injured after this battle, they would not pose a threat to them. There would be no situation where the humans took advantage of the situation after the ancient war to rise. The Emperor of the Protoss did not dare to hesitate and sent an order to the Protoss Patriarch. The Protoss Patriarch led the Protoss army and began to attack the defense line of the North region. One after another, the Protoss experts joined the battlefield and instantly caused a huge impact on the defense line of the cultivators of the North region. The blood, chi and physique of the Protoss was incomparably strong. Almost no cultivators of the same cultivation realm could fight against them. Although there were not many Protoss, they released an extremely terrifying destructive power. The human cultivators began to retreat in defeat. Right then, a large black shadow surged in midair behind the North region. It was as though a black cloud was pressing down on a city, as it surged over with an extremely powerful aura. This army was black in color. They were huge in number, and came from different races. However, every single living being exuded an extremely ferocious aura. The Kunlun race had arrived. Reader's Residence website. Chapter 1711. The Kunlun race had lived in the Kunlun ruins for generations. The bloodline of the Kunlun race was made up of many living beings from the primordial era. There was even a huge battle in the Kunlun ruins in this life. Those who survived were all paragons of the Kunlun race. The responsibility of the Kunlun race was to protect Kunlun and defend against the invasion of the Protoss. After so many years, the Kunlun race did not have much hatred for the other primordial races. However, they hated the Protoss to the core. The group of Kunlun race members rushed over and ignored the demon beasts of the 8 demon regions, charging straight for the Protoss with a murderous aura. Not to mention the many monsters and beasts. Even the celestial races were bewildered. Their formation was disrupted by the Kunlun race, and they were in disarray. Many of the Shun clan members had no idea where such a group of experts had come from. They were specifically targeting and killing them. The reason why the Kunlun race was trapped in the Kunlun ruins for so many years was ultimately because of the infiltration of the Protoss that triggered the primordial war. A single Kunlun race member might not be a match for the Protoss. However, the Kunlun race was extremely ferocious. Against the Protoss, they were exceptionally jealous. 2 or 3 Kunlun race members were enough to make a Protoss flustered. A huge battle broke out between the two sides. Before long, the Protoss suffered heavy losses. The army of the 8 demon regions and the Protoss had just crossed the border of the North region when they were blocked by the combined forces of the human and Kunlun race. They could not advance for a long time. Reporting to the Blood Emperor, the Bloodvine race's patriarch said in a deep voice, "Our clansmen can no longer hold back and want to fight. Please give the order, Blood Emperor." The patriarchs of the Heavenly Eye, Golden Crow, and Rakshasa races stood out as well. The experts of the primordial 5 races were stimulated by the blood before them and were eager to give it a try. The Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the others looked at each other and nodded. They waved their hands and said, "Go!" Boom! The alliance army of the primordial 5 races charged out like hungry tigers. At the same time, numerous formidable figures were dashing over from behind the northern territory. There were some figures that were several zhang tall, their upper bodies naked. Their auras were terrifying, majestic, like mountains as they rushed over with large strides. The barbarian race had arrived. A barbarian ancestor tore open the void and descended from the sky. His gigantic feet stomped on the ground, turning a few monster beasts into a bloody pulp. The ground cracked and trembled. Roar! A resounding dragon roar filled with boundless majesty resounded through the air, reverberating throughout the heavens and earth. Under the dragon's roar, all the demons fell silent. Divine dragons appeared above the barbarians' heads. Their horns were lofty, and their claws were sharp. They were of different colors. Some of the mystical dragons had scarlet flames burning on their bodies. They looked like fire dragons tearing through the air. Some divine dragons were covered in green scales and rode on the clouds. Some of the divine dragons roiled and soared, causing sand and pebbles to fly, covering the sky and the sun. At the front of the dragons was a divine dragon that was 10,000 feet long. Its eyes were like torches, and it had 5 claws beneath its abdomen with a torrential aura. It was the 5-clawed divine dragon Longsong. Longsong possessed the bloodline of the 5-clawed divine dragon. Although he was not an emperor, he had already cultivated to the peak of the Mahayana realm. Among the dragons, there was also an illumination dragon, Solitary Cloud, who had followed Su Zimo into the Dragon Bone Valley back then. Over the years, Solitary Cloud had also cultivated to the Mahayana realm. Solitary Cloud swung his scarlet tail and incinerated a large number of demon beasts into ashes. Wherever his tail swept past, ashes and ruins appeared. Splash! Behind the dragons and barbarians, a large expanse of gloomy seawater appeared. In the seawater, figures that were even larger than the dragons and barbarians could be vaguely seen approaching through the water. In the seawater, those figures emanated extremely powerful blood chi. Even though they were 5,000 kilometers away, many living beings on the battlefield could sense it. There was only a single race with such terrifying blood chi and rich life force, the Kuan race. The lifespan of the Kuan race was generally longer than that of the dragons. The arrival of the Kuan race weakened the auras of the many sea demons from the north East and South Seas of the 8 demon regions. The Kuan race was the king of the seas, and stood at the peak of all living beings of the seas. In the seas there was no race that could fight against them. Not even the dragons. All living beings were food for the Kuan race. After the ancient war, if the Kuan race had not settled down in the North Ocean, the other living beings would not have been able to reign supreme over the 3 seas. The appearance of the Kuan race caused some living beings in the 3 seas to tremble. A gigantic Kuan opened its mouth and released an extremely terrifying suction force. Many demon beasts of the demon regions could not control themselves and were devoured alive by the gigantic Kuan. The dragons, Kuan and barbarians joined forces and fought against the primordial 5 races at the borders of the North region. Although there were many experts of the primordial 5 races, it was not easy for them to break through the combined forces of the dragons, Kuan and barbarians. Furthermore, many paragons of the human race stood out as well. Although experts such as Ming Zhen, Demonis Ji and Extreme Fire were not conferred emperors, they had already cultivated to the peak of the Mahayana realm, and could even suppress the other races of the same cultivation realm. The Underworld Witch Emperor, Golden Crow Fire Emperor, and the others stood in the firmaments and looked down at the battlefield with cold expressions. All of a sudden, deep in the North region, an extremely violent aura burst forth from the direction of the Dragonbone Valley. Immediately after, a roar sounded. It was like a dragon's roar, and a phoenix's cry that penetrated metal and rocks. Even the primordial races present felt their hearts skip a beat when they heard it. That was the voice of the taboo dragon phoenix. The dragon phoenix true body was declaring war against the Underworld Witch Emperor, Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the others. The battlefield of emperors would not be set up here. The power of emperors was way too strong, and their destructive power was way too terrifying. If the emperors were to fight here, all the living beings below would be drowned by the power of the emperors, and would be buried with them. The emperors of the primordial 5 races knew that very well, and that was the reason why they did not attack here. If they were to attack, the emperors of the dragons would definitely arrive as well. At that time, their clansmen would not be spared in the battle between the emperors. Taboo Dragon Phoenix, Blood Emperor licked his lips, and his eyes lit up. He said excitedly, "I've never tasted a taboo bloodline before, hee." There was something else he did not say. If he could refine the bloodline of the taboo dragon phoenix, he might even break through again. "Everyone, let's go." The Golden Crow Fire Emperor smiled and said, "Since the taboo dragon phoenix has declared war in the Dragonbone Valley, I want to see how many emperors of the dragons, Kuan race, and barbarian race are left. As long as we kill the taboo, the rest are nothing to fear." The Underworld Witch Emperor said indifferently, "Don't worry." The Shadowless Emperor said in a deep voice, "I have reliable news here. The taboo dragon phoenix has just comprehended a peerless divine power. It won't pose a threat to us." "All right, be careful of the taboo divine puppet." The Underworld Witch Emperor reminded again. There were more than 50 emperors of the primordial 5 races. There were also 17 emperors of the 8 demon regions. There were 8 emperors of the Protoss, including the 5 top emperors of the Underworld Witch Emperor. There were more than 80 emperors on this side. Since ancient times, such a large number of emperors had only appeared in the Primordial Era and Primordial Era Wars. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1712. Dragonbone Valley. The emperors of the human race were already gathered here. The old storyteller and the old dragon of Enigma Palace were both here. The emperors of the dragons, Kuan and barbarian race, had already appeared as well. Since the primordial era, this was the first time the human race had joined forces with the primordial races. However, be it the emperors of the human race, dragons, barbarian and Kuan race, all of them looked in the direction of the middle continent with grim expressions. They were not worried about the war between the 10,000 races at the border of the North region and the middle continent. Even if the primordial 6 races joined forces with the 8 demon regions, they could fight against them. Furthermore, they had a trump card hidden at the border of the North region. What the emperors were truly worried about was the battle between the emperors. If they lost this battle, Even if they won the border of the North region, they would be wiped out. However, the battle between the emperors was fraught with grim possibilities. The only variable was Wu Huang. The gazes of the emperors landed on Su Zimo instinctively. Su Zimo's expression was calm, and he did not reveal any fear or worry. That gave the emperors confidence. However, in reality, Su Zimo was not confident either. Over the past few days, he had been trying to contact Wu Dao's main body. However, there was still no result. Wu Dao's main body seemed to have vanished from Tianhuang mainland without leaving a single trace. Wu Dao's main body had encountered a bottleneck. If he could not comprehend anything, even if he came out of seclusion early, he would not be able to influence the battle between the emperors. The difference in the battle between the emperors was huge. On their side, there were only 5 dragons, including the dragon phoenix True Body and Long Ran, who had just broken through not long ago. 2 emperors of the barbarian race were severely injured and could not participate in the battle. There were only 2 left who still had combat strength. The Kuan race had a strong foundation, but they encountered a calamity where 7 emperors died. Now there were only 6 Kuan emperors left. There were only 13 emperors of the dragons, barbarians and Kuan races combined. Because of the existence of the divine power Forbidden Zone, the Kunlun race only left the Kunlun ruins 1,000 years ago and entered the Mahayana realm one after another. However, no Kunlun race had been conferred the title of emperor for 1,000 years. The Kunlun race would not be able to help in the battle of the sovereigns. Right at this moment, numerous formidable figures floated up into appearance not too far ahead. There were Rakshasas that flew through the sky, blood vines that emitted ghastly blood chi, and 3-legged suncrows that were like scorching suns. The emperors of the primordial 6 races had arrived. The 5 people in the lead were the Nether Shaman Emperor, the Golden Crow Fire Emperor, the Thousand-Eyed Emperor, the Blood Emperor, and the Shadowless Emperor. There were a total of 17 demon emperors surrounding the emperors of the primordial races. The expressions of the storyteller, Long Ran, the Mountain Barbarian Emperor, the Shaokuan Emperor, and the others became extremely unsightly when they witnessed this scene. The difference was too great. There were a total of 5 top-notch rulers on the side of the primordial 6 races. Even when compared to the other emperors, there was a huge difference. Although there were more than 20 human emperors, there would not be many left when faced with the demon emperors of the 8 major demon zones. However, there were more than 50 emperors of the primordial 6 races added together. However, there were only 13 emperors of the primordial 3 races on Su Zimo's side. Su Zimo's original plan was for his 2 true bodies and the Night Spirit to join forces to try and fight against the 5 top-notch emperors of the underworld, Witch Emperor and the others. But now, he had no choice but to change his plan. If Long Ran and the other emperors were to fight against the emperors of the primordial 6 races, the difference in strength would be too great, and they would have no chance of winning. Long Ran's side would most likely be completely defeated before the outcome of the battle between the Dragon Phoenix True Bodies was decided. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "I'll join forces with everyone to fight the other emperors of the primordial 6 races." The fact that Su Zimo made this choice meant that the Dragon Phoenix True Bodies would join forces with the Night Spirit to fight against the 5 top-notch emperors of the Underworld Witch Emperor. In this short period of time, the Underworld Witch Emperor and the others had already arrived outside the Dragon Bone Valley. Standing in midair, they looked at Su Zimo and the others. Many emperors faced each other with unbridled might. The sea of bones outside Dragon Bone Valley silently turned into a pile of dust and rubble. Fufufu. Suddenly, the Golden Crow Fire Emperor laughed. "Araki Takashi, you've changed quite a bit after not seeing you for 1,000 years. Both of your true bodies are already emperors. You haven't improved much after 1,000 years," Su Zimo said indifferently. Suddenly, the Underworld Witch Emperor said, "Araki Takashi, don't force yourself. You know very well that you guys have no chance of winning this battle. Everyone listen up. As long as you're willing to swear a Dao oath and submit to us, I can make the decision to spare your lives. In fact, I can even protect your clansmen and inheritance." The Underworld Witch Emperor's words seemed to have a strange charm as his voice spread slowly. Many emperors were tempted when they heard it. Ha ha ha. Suddenly Su Zimo burst into laughter. That laughter contained a powerful sound domain technique. It was like the Sanskrit of the Buddhist sects, sacred and vast as it exploded in everyone's ears. Many emperors were shocked and snapped out of their stupor. Just now, they were almost bewitched by the Underworld Witch Emperor's voice. Fortunately, Wu Huang used the Sanskrit sound to warn them in time, and shook their minds, preventing them from falling into it. At that thought, the emperor's expressions turned ugly, as they felt a lingering fear. The witch race specialized in cultivating the essence spirit. The Underworld Witch Emperor was even more proficient in this. With just a voice, he could affect the mental states of many emperors present. It was clear how terrifying his methods were. Both sides faced each other, and seemed to be about to break out into a huge battle. However, in reality, the Underworld Witch Emperor had already made his move. Just as the Underworld Witch Emperor was channeling his secret technique to affect the mental states of many cultivators, a crack suddenly appeared above the Underworld Witch Emperor's head. A pitch-black claw suddenly reached out. It flickered with a dark light, and grabbed down fiercely at the top of the Underworld Witch Emperor's head. There was no warning at all. There were many emperors present, but none of them noticed that someone had already hidden in the void and suddenly unleashed a fatal attack. The timing of this attack could be said to be perfect. It was when the Underworld Witch Emperor attacked the human emperors, and his mental state was the most relaxed. The claw was incomparably ferocious. The bones that were exposed were like molten steel, and filled with a metallic texture, as though they could pierce through everything. What was even more terrifying was that the aura emitted by the claw caused all the primordial races present to feel a sense of fear. It's a taboo god. The Golden Crow Fire Emperor was the first to react and exclaimed, "Only a taboo bloodline could make their hearts palpitate like that." The Golden Crow Fire Emperor did not have time to think, and hurriedly transformed into his true form. He spat out a ball of blazing golden flames towards the crack and burned it. However, no matter how fast the Golden Crow Fire Emperor reacted, it was already too late. Night Spirit's attack this time was clearly a premeditated attack. He did not choose to attack the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the other emperors. Instead, he attacked the Underworld Witch Emperor. Although the Underworld Witch Emperor was a top emperor, his physical body and bloodline were the weakest among the 5 top emperors. Under the encirclement of many powerful enemies, Night Spirit could not contend with him for too long. At most, he only had one chance to attack. If he could kill the Underworld Witch Emperor, the pressure on him and the Dragon Phoenix true body would be greatly reduced. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1713. No one could save the Nether Witch Emperor, except for himself. Illusory spell. The Nether Witch Emperor did not have time to think. He frantically activated his primordial spirit and chanted an incantation, directly unleashing an exceptional divine power. Generally speaking, in a battle of emperors of this scale, the various emperors would not easily use their exceptional divine powers. Firstly, exceptional divine powers were extremely taxing on the primordial spirit. Secondly, once the exceptional divine power was unleashed, it would be difficult for this exceptional divine power to be unleashed for a period of time. This also meant that the emperors had lost their greatest trump card. Although the Nether Witch Emperor was a top emperor of the primordial races, and his combat strength was equivalent to a human emperor who had comprehended 6 exceptional divine powers, in reality, he had only comprehended 4 exceptional divine powers. And this time, the Nether Witch Emperor had no choice. If he did not unleash this exceptional divine power, he would definitely die. The Nether Witch Emperor's frail body was filled with a strange and powerful force. Under the gazes of the emperors, the Nether Witch Emperor's figure suddenly became somewhat illusory, as if he was hiding in another space, faintly discernible. Swoosh! The Night Spirit's claws passed through the Nether Witch Emperor's body, but it was as if they had passed through a layer of air. There was no force at all, and not a drop of blood flowed out. It missed. The Nether Witch Emperor had comprehended 4 exceptional divine powers. Although his physical body and bloodline were weak, his primordial spirit was too strong. The moment the night spirit attacked, he had already sensed that something was amiss. That was why he was able to unleash the illusory spell at the first moment to resist. The night spirit's attack missed, and his figure had already revealed more than half of his body from the spatial rift. The long tail behind him swung over like a ray of light in the dark night. The night spirit's long tail was sharp, and it directly pierced into the void where the Nether Witch Emperor was hiding. Poof! The Nether Witch Emperor's figure had already turned into nothingness and disappeared. However, the void began to spurt out blood. The Nether Witch Emperor had been hit by the night spirit. Unfortunately, it did not pierce the Nether Witch Emperor's vital point. At this moment, the Golden Crow Fire Emperor's golden flames had already descended. At the same time, the Thousand-Eyed Emperor, Shadowless Emperor, and Blood Emperor also attacked. The night spirit could only give up on pursuing the underworld Shaman Emperor. His figure flickered like a ghost as he passed by a Protoss Emperor. The Emperor of Protoss reacted quickly and directly attacked Night Spirit. However, the Night Spirit's body was covered in purplish gold scales, and his defense was astonishing. He ignored the attack of the Emperor of Protoss and bit down. Bang! Poochie! The Emperor of Protoss hit the Night Spirit, but his head was bitten off by the Night Spirit. His primordial spirit couldn't escape, and was swallowed by the Night Spirit. The innate abilities that the Night Spirit had comprehended were all methods to strengthen the body and the Tao of Slaughter. They were similar to the divine elephant with 3 heads and 6 arms and 6 tusks. There wouldn't be any killing techniques. They were all innate abilities to increase one's combat strength. The Night Spirit could not kill the Nether Witch Emperor in one strike, but the other emperors could not block the Night Spirit's attack. Boom! Boom! The Night Spirit's movement technique was extremely fast. After killing an Emperor of Protoss, he quickly left the battlefield. The attacks of the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the others all missed. The Night Spirit came to the side of the Dragon Phoenix true body and stood side by side with it. He looked at the many emperors with a cold expression. At the same time, the Nether Witch Emperor's figure gradually appeared from the void. The Nether Witch Emperor's face was pale, and his eyes were cold. There was a shocking bloody hole in his chest. Although the blood had been stopped by the Nether Witch Emperor with a witch race curse, the speed of the wound healing was extremely slow. Whether it was the divine elephant's claws or its tail, they were all burning with tiny purplish gold flames. The fact that the Nether Witch Emperor could preserve his body was already considered good. If it were any other emperor, they would probably be reduced to ashes in a few breaths after being pierced by the Night Spirit. The battle of the emperors had yet to truly erupt, and the Nether Witch Emperor was already injured. A Protoss Emperor had fallen. The many emperors on the side of the primordial 6 races looked at the Night Spirit with a trace of fear and dread. If not for the 5 top emperors, the Nether Witch Emperor, on their side, even the dozens of emperors might not be able to block the divine elephant's attack. Little B** starred, "How dare you hurt me?" The Nether Witch Emperor's face was dark, and his eyes flickered with a dark green light. "Kill them!" The Nether Witch Emperor waved the bone staff in his hand and shouted. The battle of the emperors had begun. Roar! The Dragon Phoenix true body did not hesitate, and directly transformed into its true form. Without holding back, it charged toward the Blood Emperor and the Shadowless Emperor of the Rakshasa race. At the same time, the Night Spirit charged forward as well, and engaged in a huge battle with the Thousand-Eyed Emperor and Golden Crow Fire Emperor. The Nether Witch Emperor stood in the distance and controlled the situation. He commanded the emperors of the primordial 6 races and said in a deep voice, "All of you, surround and kill the emperors of the dragons, Kuan and barbarian races. The demon emperors of the 8 demon regions, go and face the emperors of the human race. As for the 2 taboos, leave them to us. You don't have to worry about anything." Bang! 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 The emperors of both sides attacked one after another. The collision of Dharma treasures and blood chi exploded with a deafening bang. Su Zimo released his supreme divine power, 3 heads 6 arms. He held the human emperor's seal in one hand, and the creation lotus platform in the other. His other hands also gripped the Dharma treasures obtained from Emperor Yu and the others in the ancient battlefield. Be it sabers or swords, he spun his body and waved his 6 arms, charging into the crowd opposite him. Bang! Bang! Poof! Poof! The few Dharma treasures that were sent flying were smashed by Su Zimo's human emperor's seal and creation lotus platform. The few emperors at the front were also torn into pieces by Su Zimo's attack, and blood spewed everywhere. However, this was not a one-on-one fight. In this chaotic battle, even if the bodies of some emperors were shattered by Su Zimo, their essence spirits would be able to escape in time. The other emperors would swarm forward, and not give Su Zimo a chance to chase after them. Qingmian's true body had comprehended 2 supreme divine powers. Among the primordial races, the emperors who had comprehended 1 or 2 supreme divine powers could not stop him at all. Su Zimo released 3 heads, 6 arms, and rampaged in all directions, causing the formation of more than 50 emperors of the primordial races to be scattered. Among the primordial 6 races, there were a total of 9 emperors who had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers and surrounded Su Zimo. Only the emperors of the primordial races, who had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, could fight against Su Zimo. The 9 emperors of the primordial races attacked, and even released supreme divine powers consecutively, before Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and surrounded him. The remaining emperors of the primordial races charged towards Long Ran and the others. Long Ran, Emperor Shao Kuan, Emperor Yu Barbarian, and the other emperors roared as well, and transformed into their true forms, charging forward. Almost the moment the 2 sides collided, blood splattered everywhere and flesh flew everywhere. Long Ran had bitten a Rakshasa ruler in half, but he had not killed the Rakshasa ruler's primordial spirit yet. A 3-legged golden crow swooped down and tore off a piece of flesh with dragon scales from his body. The Emperor Yu Barbarian shattered the body of a heavenly eye race emperor with a punch and a blood vine with countless thorns wrapped around him, restricting his body. There were even emperors of the witch race who launched essence spirit attacks on him. The Emperor Yu Barbarian's face was pale, and he was almost cursed to death by an essence spirit secret skill. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1714. On the other side of the battlefield, although there were only 7 sovereigns fighting, none of the sovereigns dared to get close to them. The Dragon Phoenix True Form and the Night Spirit were facing off against the 5 top sovereigns, the Underworld Witch Emperor. The Night Spirit was facing off against the Heavenly Eye Emperor and the Golden Crow Fire Emperor. The Golden Crow Fire Emperor had refined his body and bloodline with 4 supreme divine abilities. After transforming into his true form, he was not at a disadvantage at all when fighting against the Night Spirit. The Night Spirit was fast, but the Golden Crow Fire Emperor was not slow either. After all, the Night Spirit had only comprehended 1 supreme divine ability. Although their realms were the same, the difference was too great. If it was a one-on-one battle, it was hard to tell who would win. But now, the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the Thousand Eye Emperor had joined forces and firmly held the upper hand, completely suppressing the Night Spirit. More importantly, the Underworld Witch Emperor was outside the battlefield and could attack at any time. If the Underworld Witch Emperor attacked, it would definitely be a thunderous attack. The Night Spirit still had to focus half of his attention on the Underworld Witch Emperor. As such, it was even more difficult for the Night Spirit to block the attacks of the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the Thousand Eye Emperor. However, the Night Spirit had the bloodline of a god, and his killing techniques were almost instinctive. He also left many wounds on the Golden Crow Fire Emperor and the Thousand Eye Emperor. However, these injuries were nothing to the 2 sides. On the other side, the Dragon Phoenix True Form was not in a good situation either. The Dragon Phoenix True Form had only comprehended 1 supreme divine ability. Even with a 6-fold increase in strength, he could not compare to the Blood Emperor and the Shadowless Emperor. Of course, the Dragon Phoenix True Form had its own strong points. The Shadowless Emperor was from the Rakshasa race. Although his movement techniques were fast, the Dragon Phoenix True Form had the Dragon Phoenix wings and the Great Pung Golden wings, so he was not slow either. The two sides exchanged speed in midair, turning into two streaks of light that chased after each other. It was almost impossible to see their figures. One could only see many streaks of light, runes, and forces colliding in midair. The void trembled, and cracks appeared one after another. Fresh blood continued to spill out. The Blood Emperor transformed into his true form. Thousands of blood-colored vines with barbed thorns pierced through the air. They were densely packed like a group of giant pythons, ferocious and bloodthirsty. They wanted to coil around the Dragon Phoenix true body. However, the Dragon Phoenix true body's innate ability, the Dragon Phoenix flame, was extremely terrifying and could burn everything. In just a few breaths of time, these blood vines were burned to ashes by the Dragon Phoenix flames. Hee. The Blood Emperor sneered and said, "Long Huang, I want to see how long you can keep burning." The blood vine was burned, but a large amount of filthy blood gushed out from the blood vine, splattering on the Dragon Phoenix true body. Every time the tainted blood fell, the Dragon Phoenix flames would weaken a little. Moreover, these blood vines seemed to be endless. In just a short while, the Dragon Phoenix flame had already burned hundreds of them, but the blood vines were still constantly regenerating. "Do you think you're the only one who knows how to multiply endlessly?" Blood Emperor smiled proudly. The Dragon Phoenix true body had a solemn expression. If this continued, his speed would be restricted when the Dragon Phoenix flames were extinguished, or when his strength was so weak that he could no longer burn the blood vines. At that time, he would not be able to defend against the attacks of the Shadowless Emperor. There was almost no solution to all of this. The Dragon Phoenix true body's explosive power was shocking, and he had many killing methods. However, he could not afford to waste it against the Blood Emperor, who had comprehended for peerless divine powers and controlled endless vitality. More importantly, the Underworld Witch Emperor had yet to release his true killing move right from the beginning. He was merely searching for opportunities and flaws at the periphery to probe. Once the Underworld Witch Emperor attacked, the Dragon Phoenix true body and Night Spirit would definitely be in danger. Even if they followed the original plan, and the Qinglian true body joined forces with the Dragon Phoenix true body and Night Spirit, they did not have much of a chance of winning. At the border of the North region, the 10,000 races fought and crushed one another. Although there were no emperors on this battlefield, the scene was even more tragic. Corpses were strewn all over the border and blood flowed. Countless corpses would be left on the ground with every collision. The humans, dragons, barbarians, Kuan race, and Kunlun race guarded the defense line of the North region tightly. However, there were way too many experts from the primordial 6 races and 8 demon regions. The humans and dragons began to retreat. Even though the humans had Ming Zhen, Demoness Ji, and some monster incarnates of the younger generation such as Kitsune, they could not defend against the attacks of the primordial 6 races. As a 5-clawed divine dragon, Long Song was already covered in injuries after being surrounded by experts of the primordial 6 races. Just earlier, he was almost beheaded by the divine race, his body and Tao dissipating. The combined forces of the primordial 6 races maximized their advantage. With his powerful physique and bloodline, the Protoss charged at the front and fought against the Kunlun race, barbarians and dragons. In midair, the Golden Crow and Rakshasa race joined forces and restrained the energy of the Kunlun race and dragons. As for the Bloodvine race, they took root at the borders of the North region and conjured countless blood vines, almost forming a vast sea of blood. Whenever the gigantic blood vines swept across the battlefield, countless living beings would die. As for the Heavenly Eye race, they joined forces with the Witch race and stood far away, releasing visual techniques and incantations continuously, causing immense lethality. Although the physique of the barbarian race was invincible among the primordial 9 races, their weakness was obvious. However, the weakness of the berserkers was also incredibly obvious, and that was their nascent divinity. Many of the methods of the witch race were killing techniques that targeted the essence spirit. If the two of them fought in melee combat, the witch race naturally had no chance of winning. However, in a war between the 10,000 races, it was impossible for the barbarians to break through the obstacles and reach the witch race. That way, The witch race could release essence spirit incantations and essence spirit secret skills without restraint. Up till this point of the war, the barbarians had suffered heavy losses, and there was almost no chance of them surviving the descent of the incantations of the witch race. This can't continue. I can't hold on any longer. Even with Lin Xuanji's lazy personality, he was a little anxious at the moment. On the battlefield, Kitsune wielded her sword and had just killed a Protoss patriarch. Suddenly, she retreated and turned to look at a black-robed youth beside her. "Junior brother, you can attack now." Kitsune's junior brother was Xiao Yao, the forbidden Kuanpeng. With the help of the primordial divine spring, Xiao Yao's injuries had long recovered. When the war broke out, Carefree had been hiding in the crowd, following Baiming Shui like an ordinary human. He had never exposed his identity. At that time, many emperors of the primordial races were present. The moment Xiao Yao revealed his bloodline, he would be killed right away. Therefore, Xiao Yao followed behind Kitsune in his human form the entire time, and fought on the battlefield, without exposing his bloodline or identity. Now that the emperors had left, the intense energy fluctuation from the Dragon Bone Valley proved that the war between emperors had already broken out. Here, no emperor could threaten Xiao Yao. All right. When he heard Kitsune's words, Xiao Yao released his blood qi without hesitation and roared into the skies. Rumble. Boom. An earth-shaking sound of a tsunami erupted. In the skies above the borders of the North region, Xiao Yao leaped into the air and charged towards the camp of the primordial 6 races. A series of rumbling sounds came from his body, and his blood qi surged. You must have a death wish. When they saw Xiao Yao charge over, experts of the primordial races welcomed him immediately. The Protoss Golden Crow, Heavenly Eye and even patriarchs of the witch race attacked one after another. In an instant, at least a dozen attacks surged toward Xiao Yao, who was in the air. Book guest residence reading website. Chapter 1715. All of a sudden, a dark and deep sea appeared. Carefree's thin figure had disappeared. In his place was a massive creature that was thousands of kilometers long and covered the skies. It emitted an extremely terrifying aura and looked like a gigantic Kuan. That's a Kuan ancestor? However, how can the power of that Kuan ancestor be so strong? Even I feel my heart skip a beat, as though a calamity is about to befall us. Many patriarchs of the primordial races frowned and glared at Carefree with bewildered expressions. The gigantic Kuan was even larger than the other Kuan ancestors. Furthermore, there seemed to be some differences. However, the gigantic Kuan was too huge. Many experts could not see its full appearance for a short period of time when they raised their heads, and could not tell what it was. All of a sudden, the gigantic Kuan opened its mouth and burst forth with an extremely terrifying suction force. The dozens of attacks included Dharma treasures, divine powers, secret skills and incantations. Some Dharmic arts were torn apart by the massive suction force in midair. The other Dharma treasures and divine powers were devoured by the bottomless mouth. Pust! The expressions of many experts changed starkly as they gasped. The moment the massive creature descended, seawater filled the air, and its might was unbridled. The entire battlefield at the borders of the North region froze for a moment. All of a sudden, the gigantic Kuan's tail slapped down viciously, and a huge shadow shrouded over, as though the sky was collapsing. Many experts' expressions changed, and they hurriedly retreated. Bang! There was a deafening bang. The gigantic Kuan's tail smashed onto the ground, and smashed countless experts of the primordial races into meat paste, without any corpses left. After the gigantic Kuan's tail was raised, a large blank area appeared in the camp of the primordial 6 races. The experts who were initially standing there, and wanted to fight it head-on, were all slapped to death with their bodies and spirits destroyed. What's going on? That gigantic Kuan is clearly only at the ancestor realm. Why is its power so terrifying? Could it be? Just as many experts of the primordial races were guessing, the figure of the gigantic Kuan suddenly turned blurry. Immediately after, the massive creature disappeared before everyone's eyes. Screech! Immediately after, a sharp and ear-piercing cry rang out. Many experts of the primordial races looked up and saw a rock covered in golden feathers soaring in the sky. It shuttled through the clouds, and its wings were like clouds that hung down from the sky, covering the surroundings with boundless light. Just now, some Rakshasa and Golden Crow clansmen had managed to escape from the giant Kuan's tail and arrived in midair. However, he just happened to bump into the golden-winged great rock. The golden-winged great rock flapped its wings and turned into a dazzling golden light, passing through the Rakshasa and Golden Crow experts. Puff! Puff! The bodies of those experts were sliced into two by the golden-winged rock, and their blood dyed the heavens. Some of the three-legged golden crows were pressed down by the sharp claws of the golden-winged rock. They were like little chicks in his palm, and could not resist at all. Although the movement techniques of the Rakshasa race were fast, they were still far slower than the golden rock, and could not escape at all. The golden-winged rock galloped in midair, and its sharp claws flashed. A Rakshasa expert's head would definitely be pierced, and his essence spirit would be destroyed. Kuan Rock. It's the forbidden Kuan Rock. It was only at that moment that many experts of the primordial races reacted and roared from the crowd. Carefree transformed into a gigantic Kuan and a rock at times. He rampaged through the battlefield and released extremely ferocious attacks, fully unleashing the combat strength of a taboo. After Carefree recovered from his injuries a few days ago, he had already advanced to the Mahayana realm. Although he was at the early-stage Mahayana realm, he could kill mid-stage or even late-stage Mahayana patriarchs with ease. Only the patriarchs of the primordial races, at the peak of the Mahayana realm, could fight against Carefree. The descent of the forbidden Kuan Rock reversed the situation of the North region battlefield instantly. The morale of the humans, dragons, Kuan barbarians and Kunlun race was boosted, and they began their counterattack. Lin Xuanji charged for a while and retreated from the front. He took out a few elixirs and swallowed them, taking a slight breather. He looked in the direction of the Dragon Bone Valley, but he did not relax at all. With the forbidden Kuan Rock guarding the North region, they had already gained the upper hand. However, what truly decided the direction of this battle was the Battle of the Emperors in the Dragon Bone Valley. If Su Zimo and the others were defeated, it would be useless even if they won the battlefield at the border of the North region. Dragon Bone Valley. The Battle of the Emperors was getting more intense. Many emperors were already riddled with injuries. In such an intense battle, they did not have the excess dermic powers to recover. On the side of the Dragon Phoenix True Body, the Golden Crow Fire Emperor, and the other emperors of the primordial 5 races, had the upper hand the entire time, and were suppressing him and the Night Spirit. However, the two taboos could still hold on with their strong physiques and bloodlines. On the side of Qinglian's True Body, she fought against 9 emperors of the primordial races, who had comprehended 3 peerless divine powers alone. With her 3 heads and 6 arms, she was also in a stalemate. After a long battle, Su Zimo still did not have the chance to kill an emperor completely. Qinglian's True Body had comprehended 2 peerless divine powers. If she was fighting alone, she could kill the emperors surrounding her with ease. However, even if the 9 emperors joined forces, Su Zimo could only barely protect himself. During this period of time, he had relied on the might of the human emperor's seal to smash the bodies of a few emperors into pieces several times. However, he would be stopped by the other emperors before long, and could only watch helplessly as the essence spirits of those emperors escaped, and were reborn with a drop of blood to condense their bodies and charge forward once more. Of course, with the endless vitality of Qinglian's True Body, the power in her body was almost endless. Even if the 9 emperors joined forces, it would be difficult for them to kill her. Be it the Dragon Phoenix True Body or Qinglian's True Body, they could still guarantee victory. However, the situation on the side of the human emperors, and Long Ran, was already precarious. Due to the previous calamity, the dragons, Kuan and barbarians suffered heavy losses, and there were few emperors. Against the encirclement of dozens of emperors from the primordial 6 races, they could no longer hold on. At this point of the battle, a barbarian emperor and 2 Kuan emperors had already died. The other emperors, such as Long Ran and the others, were also covered in injuries. There were less than 10 emperors left of the three races. Even with the help of the old storyteller, they were already retreating in defeat and were about to collapse. Right then a shuddering aura descended. Apart from the underworld witch emperor and the other top emperors, everyone else felt a sense of oppression. Not far away, a white-haired man walked over slowly with an expressionless face. He dragged a pitch-black saber in his hand, and the tip of the saber slid through the void, causing the void to split open silently. The white-haired man's eyes were dull without any emotions. His body emitted rumbling fiend chi and countless negative emotions. A moment ago, the white-haired man was still far away. However, in the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in the middle of the battlefield. Swash! The white-haired man attacked, and his fiend saber tore through the air. A torrential hatred descended and enveloped more than 10 emperors of the primordial races. Shura had arrived. Genius memorized the address of this website in a second. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 1716. You must have a death wish. The dozen or so primordial races attacked one after another as well. They channeled their blood chi and essence spirits to control their dermic treasures, and charged towards Shura Yenbeichen's hatred fiend saber. Cling! Clang! The sound of metal clashing could be heard. It was ear-piercing and unpleasant as sparks flew everywhere. At least half of the dermic treasures were cut down by the hatred fiend saber. The other dermic treasures passed through the defense of the hatred fiend saber and charged towards Yenbeichen. Yenbeichen was expressionless, as though he could not sense the threat of those dermic treasures. His saber beam spun, and the hatred fiend saber slashed down towards a Rakshasa emperor with rumbling fiend chi. Teleport. The Rakshasa emperor released a peerless divine power and teleported, disappearing from the spot and appearing in another void. However, the moment the Rakshasa emperor appeared, the hatred fiend saber had already slashed down. It was as though the hatred fiend saber had chased after him instantly. Before the Rakshasa emperor could release his second peerless divine power, he was killed on the spot by the hatred fiend saber, and even his essence spirit could not escape. Up till this point of the battle, apart from Night Spirit, who killed a Protoss emperor at the beginning, the other side only lost 2 emperors. To think that Yenbeichen would kill a Rakshasa emperor, who had comprehended 3 peerless divine powers on the spot with 2 slashes the moment he arrived. Shura's terror was clear. Of course, Yenbeichen was also struck by many dermic treasures when he killed the Rakshasa emperor. Blood mists burst out, and his body was almost shattered. However, Yenbeichen's face was still expressionless, as though he could not feel any pain. His eyes were filled with endless hatred. Accompanied by that hatred, the fiend chi in Yenbeichen's body became denser and more abundant. It surged out endlessly and healed the wounds on his body. The hatred fiend's saber buzzed and trembled in his palm in extreme excitement. It's the hatred fiend's saber. The expression of one of the sorcerer rulers changed drastically. He said sternly, "This person has inherited Demon Emperor Lihan's inheritance." Yenbeichen was notorious in the cultivation world. However, he had almost no reputation among the primordial 9 races. Moreover, everyone present was a ruler of the ferocious races. In the hearts of the rulers from the primordial races, Araki Takeshi was the only human that they valued. Even if they had heard of Yenbeichen's name, they did not take it to heart. However, the words fiend emperor hatred caused the expressions of many emperors of the primordial races to change. In the ancient books of the primordial races, it was clearly recorded that in the ancient war, although the eternal human emperor was the strongest and invincible, he was not the one who killed the most primordial races. It was Demon Emperor Lihan. According to the ancient records, the Demon Emperor Lihan had created a peerless ability that would cause one to fall into a state of hatred. The deeper one's hatred was, the stronger one's strength would be. It was almost endless, and one would not feel pain or fatigue. Back then, if not for the fact that the fiend Emperor Lihan was unable to extricate himself from the state of hatred and committed suicide in pain, countless primordial races would have died. Right now, Yenbeichen was clearly in the state of hatred. The person before them was practically a second fiend Emperor Lihan. Those primordial races did not know that although Yen Beichen's combat strength could not compare to Fiend Emperor Lihan at his peak, he had inherited the legacies of two fiend sects, and his future accomplishments might even be above the Fiend Emperor Lihan. For 1,000 years, Yen Beichen had never entered the ancient battlefield. However, he was still conferred the title of Emperor. All the divine powers he had comprehended were within the hatred fiend saber. Right now, he had already comprehended two peerless divine powers, and was immersed in the state of hatred. His combat strength rose continuously, and he could even kill rulers of the primordial races, who had comprehended three peerless divine powers. Su Zimo was relieved to see that Yen Beichen was fine in the battle. He had not seen Yen Beichen since the convention of the myriad races. To think that by the time Yen Beichen returned, he would already be a conferred emperor with such terrifying combat strength. Kill him, an emperor of the Heavenly Eye race hollered, and the Heavenly Eye on his glabella opened, releasing a peerless divine power. These primordial races had already sensed how terrifying Yen Beichen was, and did not want to give Yen Beichen too many chances. At the same time, the other emperors of the primordial races attacked as well. They did not dare to hold back, and released peerless divine powers towards Yen Beichen. When the storyteller old man, Long Ran and the others saw that the situation was amiss, they hurried forward and attacked with all their might. Yen Beichen gripped his saber with both hands and fell into immense sorrow and pain, as though he could not see the many peerless divine powers that were released before him. Veins popped up on his neck, and his facial features became somewhat distorted. Most of the emperors present were affected by such intense hatred. Some of the emperors of the primordial races, who had only comprehended a single peerless divine power, could not even control their mental states. Yen Beichen was sad. The emperors of the primordial races were sad as well. Yen Beichen was resentful. The emperors of the primordial races were resentful as well. The emotions of some of the emperors of the primordial races were even beginning to be affected by Yen Beichen. Rumbling fiend qi surged continuously within Yen Beichen's body, and an extremely powerful divine power spread out. The world is everlasting. Yen Beichen seemed to have forgotten where he was as he murmured softly. There was longing, sadness, pain and endless hatred in his eyes. He looked at the void in front of him, and gripped the hatred fiend's saber with both hands. He slashed down slowly and murmured, "This hatred will never end." After saying that, the hatred fiend's saber seemed to have disappeared from Yen Beichen's palm. Immediately after, an endless stream of pitch-black fiend qi condensed into endless saber lights that shuttled through the battlefield. Boom! 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 The saber lights collided with the many peerless divine powers, and exploded with a terrifying might. Hatred was like a saber that was endless. The peerless divine power of an Emperor Protoss was shattered by a saber light. Immediately after, endless saber lights slashed down like endless hatred. In just a few breaths, the Emperor Protoss was drowned by endless saber lights, and turned into a blood mist. Not only was the life force of every drop of blood destroyed, his essence spirit was also destroyed on the spot, and he died. The bodies of Protoss were so strong that they could even take Dharma treasures head-on. However, they were turned into a blood mist by the endless saber lights condensed from hatred. Against the attacks of many emperors of the primordial races, Yen Beichen released his peerless divine powers, and channeled his killing power to its limits, killing another person. Yen Beichen attacked and stopped the declining momentum of the old storyteller, Long Ran and the other emperors almost single-handedly, stabilizing the situation. To think that apart from Araki Takashi, there's such a monster incarnate in the human race. If Araki Takashi can be compared to the human emperor of all beings, this person is almost the fiend emperor hatred of the past. Many emperors of the primordial races were secretly shocked. Thankfully, they started this battle in time. If this dragged on any longer and Araki Takashi and Shura grew once more and comprehended even more peerless divine powers, the consequences would be unimaginable. Book guest residence reading website. Chapter 1717. The situation in the Battle of the Emperors changed rapidly. Initially, the primordial 6 races had the advantage, But now, because of Shura Yin Beichen's appearance, the morale of the human emperors was boosted. Instead, the emperors of the primordial 6 races died one after another. The underworld witch emperor's expression was grim, as his gaze landed on Yin Beichen with killing intent. Initially, he did not want to bother about the battle over there, and only wanted to find an opportunity to kill the 2 taboos. However, at that moment, the underworld witch emperor decided to attack first and kill Shura Yin Beichen. Spirit-slaying curse. The underworld witch emperor secretly conjured a secret skill and channeled his spirit consciousness, preparing to release an essence spirit secret skill to kill Yin Beichen directly. The spirit-slaying curse was a killing art that targeted the essence spirit and would descend directly into Yin Beichen's consciousness. Given the combat strength of the underworld witch emperor, Yin Beichen would definitely die once the essence spirit secret skill was formed. The Dragon Phoenix true body fought against the Blood Emperor and Shadowless Emperor, but he was paying attention to the underworld witch emperor's actions. At that moment, the Dragon Phoenix true body sensed a spirit consciousness fluctuation in the void and guessed the underworld witch emperor's thoughts right away. Reverse scale. The Dragon Phoenix true body channeled his essence spirit secret skill without hesitation. In his consciousness, his massive spirit consciousness compressed and condensed continuously. A scarlet scale the size of a palm floated out from his glabella and flew towards the underworld witch emperor. The underworld witch emperor's expression changed. The witch race specialized in cultivating the essence spirit, and his comprehension of the essence spirit Tao was even more shocking. Naturally, he could sense the terrifying aura emitted by the scale. What's that essence spirit secret skill? Even I feel my heart skip a beat. The underworld witch emperor did not dare to be careless, and gave up on killing Yin Beichen for the time being. He focused on the scarlet scale that was flying over not far away. Blood Emperor, Shadowless Emperor, this essence spirit secret skill is a little strange. Let's attack at the same time. The underworld witch emperor sent a voice transmission hurriedly. Although the underworld witch emperor did not know the origin and power of the reverse scale, he sensed danger. Of course, he was confident that he could defend against the essence spirit secret skill of the Dragon Phoenix true body. However, he could not guarantee that his essence spirit would not be injured. He didn't dare to take this risk. Nonetheless, if the 3 rulers attacked at the same time, no matter how peculiar the reverse scale was, it would be useless. In terms of cultivation level, they were far superior to the Dragon Phoenix true bodies. No matter how strong the forbidden Dragon Phoenix's primordial spirit was, it could not stop the 3 of them. When the Blood Emperor and the Shadowless Emperor heard the Dark Wizard Emperor's message, they did not hesitate. The 2 sovereigns could also feel the terror of the reverse scale. Bloodthirsty arrow. Between the Blood Emperor's eyebrows, a huge amount of blood-red divine sense gathered. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a blood-red arrow and shot towards the reverse scale. A beam of cold light shot out of Shadowless Emperor's forehead. It was like a sharp scimitar. It drew a beautiful arc and cut toward the reverse scale. The underworld witch emperor did not dare to be careless. He formed a dark green skull that emitted an evil aura and swallowed the reverse scale. 3 essence spirit secret skills descended at the same time. Almost at the same time, the 3 essence spirit secret skills collided with the reverse scale. There was no earth-shattering sound. The entire process was silent. It was like Diyushi. However, the void where the 4 essence spirit secret skills collided was collapsing inch by inch. A terrifying aura spread. Even the sovereigns in the distance felt their hearts palpitate and looked over. For powerful divine senses collided in midair and devoured each other. Cracks began to appear on the reverse scale, and it quickly crumbled. As for the other 3 essence spirit secret skills, they could not withstand it and dissipated as well. The Blood Emperor and the Shadowless Emperor's bodies swayed, and their expressions changed drastically. The 3 of them joined forces and collided with this ordinary-looking scale. Their primordial spirits felt a sharp pain and were almost injured. One could imagine that if they fought against the primordial spirits of the Dragon Phoenix true bodies alone, their primordial spirits would definitely be severely injured. The 2 sovereigns looked at each other and felt a lingering fear. Those who touch the reverse scale of a dragon will definitely die. The underworld which Emperor's eyes shone as he murmured, "I see." He was extremely accomplished in the primordial spirit realm. After fighting with the reverse scale once, he had already sensed the secret of the reverse scale. Unfortunately, no matter how strong the reverse scale was, there was a limit to its power. The essence spirit secret skills released by the combined forces of 3 top sovereigns had already exceeded that limit. The dragon phoenix true body frowned slightly and grunted. It was as though it was struck by lightning, and its consciousness even went blank for a moment. The first to react was the underworld witch emperor. A chance. He had been wandering outside the battlefield for this moment. He sensed the situation of the dragon phoenix true body, and his eyes shone brightly. Without hesitation, he released a peerless divine power. Eternal curse. The underworld witch emperor muttered an incantation that was difficult to understand. He drew a circle in the air with his finger and finally touched the center of his brows. The eternal curse was the most evil and terrifying curse of the witch race that targeted the primordial spirit. Once one fell into it, not only would they die, but their bloodline and descendants would also be affected by the curse for all eternity. It was extremely vicious. When the curse descended, one would fall into eternal oblivion. The underworld witch emperor had released this peerless divine power against the eternal human emperor 1,000 years ago at the convention of the 10,000 races. However, it was broken by the eternal human emperor's divine power. In Tianhuang mainland, there were almost no peerless divine powers that could break the eternal curse. The eternal human emperor had only comprehended the eternal human emperor in the upper realm. The reverse scale of the dragon phoenix true body had already been released. The underworld witch emperor believed that his eternal curse would definitely kill the dragon phoenix true body. Not only that, this curse would also completely sever the bloodline of the taboo dragon phoenix in Tianhuang mainland. Anyone with the bloodline of the dragon phoenix would be cursed. Kill them all. The dragon phoenix true body stood in midair. Suddenly, endless dark green power surged into his consciousness. It was extremely evil and increased in number, wanting to devour the dragon phoenix essence spirit. However, the moment the dark green power of the curse appeared in the dragon phoenix true body's consciousness, it was attacked by countless forces. The dragon phoenix true body's consciousness was simply a paradise for demon kings. On the vast land, the wild bull demon king, blood ape demon king, divine elephant demon king, and the other demon kings sensed the invasion of external forces and were furious, roaring. In the middle of the continent, there was a deep and dark ocean. Suddenly, raging waves surged in the ocean. The desolate ocean dragon king broke out of the ocean, and endless seawater poured down, washing away the power of the curse in his consciousness. In the desolate ocean, a spirit turtle appeared with a bright gaze. Above the firmaments, there was also a golden-winged roc galloping and swooping down, tearing at the power of the curse in his consciousness. There was no need for the dragon phoenix true body to control it. When the 11 demon kings sensed the threat, they automatically protected their master and fought against the power of the curse that surged in. By the time the curse of the peerless divine power broke through the defense line of the 11 demon kings, its power had already been reduced by more than half. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 17:18. The light of the power of the curse was much dimmer, and its color was much lighter as well. However, this was a peerless divine power after all. The remaining power of the curse gathered rapidly and formed a ghastly green ball of light in the blink of an eye. The ball of light was like the eyeball of the underworld witch emperor as it glared at the dragon phoenix true body, not far away with a cruel expression. At that moment, the eternal curse had already broken through the obstruction of the 11 demon kings. There was no longer any power that could stop it from killing the dragon phoenix essence spirit. Although its power was already much weaker, it was enough to severely injure the dragon phoenix essence spirit, even if it could not kill it directly. Swoosh! The ghastly green ball of light collided fiercely towards the dragon phoenix essence spirit. Suddenly, the dragon phoenix essence spirit opened his eyes. Just as the ghastly green ball of light was about to hit him, he suddenly retreated and hid behind a blazing ball of light not far away. Beside the dragon phoenix essence spirit, there was a ball of light floating. That was the final inheritance of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, left in his consciousness. As expected, when the ball of light shattered and the 12th demon king descended, he would comprehend the final divine power of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. If he could comprehend that divine power, his combat strength would definitely increase exponentially, and there was a high chance that he could change the direction of the battle. Actually, the moment the eternal curse broke through the obstruction of the 11 demon kings, the dragon phoenix true body had already regained consciousness and awakened. His essence spirit could have left his body completely and avoided the power of the eternal curse. However, he did not do that. In a flash, a crazy thought appeared in the dragon phoenix true body's mind. He wanted to make use of the power of the eternal curse to shatter the final inheritance ball of the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness in his consciousness. Boom! Indeed, the ghastly green ball of light formed by the eternal curse collided against the inheritance ball of light. The dragon phoenix essence spirit was nervous as he watched everything with rapt attention, waiting for the final outcome. Buzz! 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 The two balls of light collided, and as though they were triggered, the blazing ball of light burst forth with divine light and pierced through the ghastly green ball of light. In the blink of an eye, the eternal curse ball of light was riddled with holes and billowed with green smoke. The dragon phoenix primordial spirit was stunned. In the blink of an eye, the ball of light of the eternal curse was completely refined. All that was left was a wisp of green smoke floating in his sea of consciousness. Soon it disappeared. As for the inheritance light sphere, it still showed no signs of shattering. Instead, it regained its calm. Although the eternal curse was almost perfectly neutralized by the ball of light, a trace of disappointment flashed across the eyes of the dragon phoenix true body. I didn't expect that I still wouldn't succeed. The dragon phoenix true body frowned slightly and thought to himself, could it be that this ball of light will only shatter during the tribulation and leave behind the inheritance? This thought flashed through his mind, and the dragon phoenix true body did not think too much about it. Perhaps Daiyu had her own reasons for making such arrangements. Let nature take its course. There was no need to force anything. When the dragon phoenix real body regained consciousness, there was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. As for the underworld witch emperor, he was already a little dumbfounded. The underworld witch emperor widened his eyes and looked at the dragon phoenix true body in disbelief. His eternal curse was actually unable to wipe out the dragon phoenix primordial spirit? The underworld witch emperor could not sense what was happening in the sea of consciousness. He could not understand. The dragon phoenix true body had only comprehended the six fangs divine power. How could it possibly neutralize his eternal curse? What confused him the most was that the dragon phoenix true body had survived his exceptional superpower. Yet he was still a little disappointed. When the Blood Emperor and the Shadowless Emperor sensed that the Underworld Witch Emperor had used the eternal curse, they also thought that the dragon phoenix true body would definitely die. Thus they relaxed a little. The dragon phoenix true body had already regained consciousness. Be careful! The Underworld Witch Emperor suddenly screamed. The dragon phoenix true body flashed and instantly appeared in front of the Blood Emperor. He grabbed at the blood vine's stem. The primordial spirit of the blood vine race was hidden in the stem of the blood vine. At the same time, the dragon phoenix true body activated his primordial spirit and formed a long gray sword in one of his claws. He slashed at the Shadowless Emperor, who was not far away. Great superpower Time Blade! Splat! Splat! The Blood Emperor's reaction was extremely fast. He waved many blood vines and wrapped them around the dragon phoenix true body. However, the dragon phoenix true body tore them apart. Taking advantage of this slight delay, the Blood Emperor activated his primordial spirit and formed an exceptional superpower. Nether Blood Shield. A huge blood shield formed above the Blood Emperor's head. It was like a mirror, and the surface of the mirror sparkled with a strange light. Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. The dragon phoenix true body shuddered. The Blood Emperor had also cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. At this moment, the dragon phoenix true body finally confirmed one thing. The sudden rise of the Blood Emperor, the Shadowless Emperor, and the Thousand-Eyed Emperor was definitely not a coincidence. Even the emperors of the primordial races had the figure of that bloody face behind them. Boom! The dragon phoenix true body's sharp claws collided heavily with the nether blood shield. There was a loud explosion, and blood splattered in all directions. It was the same nether blood shield, but the one formed by the Blood Emperor was too strong. It was not something that Emperor Yu and the others could compare to. The dragon phoenix true body activated the Six Fangs divine power, but he was still unable to penetrate the blood shield. The dragon phoenix true body leaped into the air, and the blood shield's surface returned to normal. Suddenly, a ripple appeared on the surface of the blood shield, and a strange bloody face appeared on the surface of the blood shield. It was grinning at the dragon phoenix true body. Hiss! The dragon phoenix true body felt a chill run down his spine, and his hair stood on end. When he looked at the blood shield, the surface of the blood shield had returned to normal, and the bloody face had disappeared. It was as if just now, the dragon phoenix true body had been hallucinating. On the other side, the Shadowless Emperor could not help but smirk when he saw a gray saber slashing down at him. He could sense that this was just a great mystique. Although the aura of this gray saber was a little strange, a great mystique was no threat to him. He could easily crush it with his bare hands. It seems like the forbidden dragon phoenix true body has run out of tricks. The Shadowless Emperor had a mocking look on his face. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the gray saber. The Dark Witch Emperor just now's attention was on the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor's nether blood shield also made him feel a trace of indescribable throbbing. However, he could not think of anything in a short period of time. When the Dark Witch Emperor looked away, he saw the Shadowless Emperor grabbing the gray saber with his bare hands. The Shadowless Emperor had not been to the convention of the myriad tribes, so he did not know what this gray saber was. However, the Dark Witch Emperor had seen with his own eyes how terrifying this gray saber was. It was the power of time. 1,000 years ago, during the convention of the myriad tribes, even Tian Shunhuang could not block the power of the time saber. One slash from the saber was equivalent to 30,000 years of life. Don't touch that saber. The Dark Witch Emperor quickly reminded him. It's just a great mystique. What's the big deal? The Shadowless Emperor replied nonchalantly, and his hand had already landed on the gray saber. Genius memorized this address in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website, am. Chapter 1719. Crack. Shadowless King reached out and crushed the longsword. His palm was unharmed. Shadowless King sneered. He glanced at the Underworld Wizard King and said arrogantly, "It's just a grand superpower. There's nothing to be surprised about." Underworld Wizard you. He suddenly could not continue. Shadowless King seemed to have sensed something, and his expression changed drastically. How can this be? Shadowless King originally had 50,000 years of lifespan. However, in just a short while, his lifespan had been reduced to 20,000 years. 20,000 years of lifespan was the beginning of the end for an emperor's lifespan. In the blink of an eye, Shadowless King had aged a lot. Fine wrinkles even appeared at the corners of his eyes. There were also a few strands of white hair in his black hair. It was extremely eye-catching. Shadowless King activated his chi and blood crazily. He even formed an ultimate superpower that surged in his body. He wanted to reverse the situation. However, no matter what he did, his lifespan did not show any signs of recovering. 30,000 years of his lifespan had disappeared just like that. That's the power of time, the Underworld Wizard King said with a grave expression. One slash can cut off 30,000 years of lifespan. It can't be reversed. It can't be repaired. Shadowless King's expression darkened. He did not expect a grand superpower to cause so much damage to him. At this moment, the Dragon Phoenix true form activated his primordial spirit. A cloud of gray mist gathered in his palms. It surged and transformed into a longsword again. The Sword of Time appeared again, and slashed toward Shadowless King. Shadowless King only had 20,000 years of lifespan left. If he was hit again, his lifespan would be depleted, and he would die. If he could kill a top-tier emperor, the pressure on the Dragon Phoenix true form and the Night Spirit would be greatly reduced. Don't use your Dharma treasures to block it. Use your superpower to fight it. The Underworld Wizard King quickly reminded him. Time was the hardest to understand. Even Dharma treasures could not block it. Only superpower could fight it. Under normal circumstances, with Shadowless King's cultivation, he could block the Sword of Time with a superpower. However, Shadowless King did not dare to be careless. He immediately used his superpower, the Wings of Gale. Shadowless King had cultivated this superpower to the level of an ultimate superpower. Whoosh! Shadowless King opened his wings and kept spinning. The edges of his wings were extremely sharp, and a storm surrounded his body. It was like a huge sharp disc crashing towards the Blade of Time. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The Blade of Time shattered and scattered on the spot. Although the power of time was terrifying, it was only a great mystique after all. It couldn't withstand the impact of a peerless mystique. Back then, during the convention of myriad races, Shen Huang had also used his innate ability, the Divine Blood Ring. Not only had he easily shattered the Blade of Time, but he had also almost severely injured the Dragon Phoenix true body. Fortunately, Emperor Qianlong had intervened in time to block the Divine Blood Ring. Now that the Blade of Time had shattered, the sharp disc transformed from the Wings of Gale, only paused for a moment, before slashing towards the Dragon Phoenix true body again. The Nether Shaman Emperor and the Blood Emperor attacked at the same time. The two top-notch emperors didn't hesitate, and they directly executed their peerless divine abilities. Boundless Blood Sea. The Blood Emperor's thousands of blood vines spewed out an endless amount of blood, which merged with the divine power, and transformed into a boundless sea of blood that charged toward the Dragon Phoenix true body. 5 Ghosts Curse. The Nether Shaman Emperor waved the bone staff in his hand, and streaks of dark green curse power surged out. They formed 5 hideous skulls in mid-air, and charged toward the Dragon Phoenix true body. The Wings of Gale was the first to descend. A long saber suddenly flew out from the Dragon Phoenix true body's glabella. The blade was snow white, and one could vaguely see dragon bones in it. Dragon Soul Saber. The Dragon Phoenix true body had entered the Mahayana realm, and this long saber had returned to its original level. Clang! The saber vibrated, and along with the roar of a dragon, endless saber chi burst out. It formed a divine dragon that danced around the Dragon Soul Saber. See calming. The Dragon Phoenix true body controlled the Dragon Soul Saber and activated his blood chi. He unleashed the sea calming move and slashed at the sharp disc that was flying toward him. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The sharp disc stopped in midair and collapsed, revealing the Shadowless Emperor's tall figure. However, the Dragon Soul Saber was also sent flying by a powerful force. The Dragon Phoenix's claws were drenched in blood from the impact. This saber strike contained the great magical power of the fixed body technique, coupled with the physical strength of the Dragon Phoenix true body, the power of his blood chi, and even the power of the time saber. He managed to defend against the Wings of Gale. The more peerless divine powers an emperor comprehended, the stronger their essence spirit would be, and the more powerful the peerless divine powers they released would be. Although he blocked the Wings of Gale, the danger of the Dragon Phoenix true body was not resolved. To be precise, the Dragon Phoenix true body was already in an unprecedented danger. The two peerless divine powers of the Blood Emperor and the Nether Shaman Emperor had already descended. Swoosh! The endless sea of blood covered the world and devoured the Dragon Phoenix true body. Not only did the sea of blood contain powerful divine powers, but it also contained endless filth and evil. If ordinary emperors were devoured by the sea of blood, they would turn into pus and fuse into the sea of blood in less than 3 breaths. The battle between the emperors became more intense. The old storyteller, Long Ran, and the others could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat when they saw the Dragon Phoenix true body being devoured by the sea of blood. If the Dragon Phoenix true body died, the taboo god puppet would definitely not be able to defend against the attacks of the 5 top emperors. At that time, Qinglian's true body, the emperors of the human race, and all of them would die here. No one would be spared. Swoosh! Right then, a massive figure broke through the surface of the sea of blood with raging flames burning all over. It was the Dragon Phoenix true body. However, the flames on the Dragon Phoenix true body were also weakening continuously. The Dragon Phoenix flames was the innate divine power of the Dragon Phoenix. However, he had yet to cultivate this divine power to a peerless level. If not for the fact that the Dragon Phoenix flames countered these filthy and evil things, the Dragon Phoenix true body would have been buried in the sea of blood. Let's see how long more you can last. The Blood Emperor had a ruthless expression as he gritted his teeth and channeled his essence spirit wildly. A wave surged in the sea of blood and engulfed the Dragon Phoenix true body once more. Buzz! Buzz! The power of the sea of blood and the Dragon Phoenix flames collided continuously with an ear-piercing sound. However, the Dragon Phoenix flames were getting weaker. As for the sea of blood, it was endless and endless. Howl! Right then, a series of ghostly wails sounded. 5 dark green skulls whistled over like 5 malevolent ghosts and demons, and landed on the Dragon Phoenix true body instantly. Crack! Crack! As though they had gone mad, the skulls opened their mouths and bit down on the flesh of the Dragon Phoenix true body. Normally speaking, the Dragon Phoenix true body had strong defense with the protection of the Dragon Phoenix flames and scales. However, at that moment, his Dragon Phoenix flames and scales were more or less worn down by the sea of blood. The 5 skulls were also condensed by peerless divine powers. They bit down crazily and tore off 5 pieces of flesh with scales from the Dragon Phoenix true body, devouring them in huge mouthfuls. Bookhouse reading website. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.